Good afternoon and welcome to ABG Sundal Collier's Pre-IPO seminar. My name is Adam Carlson. I'm an analyst in the Healthcare Equity Research team. Today we are hosting 7 companies who will be presenting in half-an-hour slots up until 4 p.m. 20 minutes worth of presentation and about 5 minutes worth of Q&A at the end. It's my pleasure to welcome the first company, XNK Therapeutics, and I'll hand over the word to CEO Johan Liding at XNK.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm very pleased today to present XNK Therapeutics to you. XNK Therapeutics is an immunotherapy company focusing its efforts on developing novel NK cell-based therapies. And NK cells are natural killer cells which are part of the innate immune system. We are today a world leading in the field of autologous NK cells, and autologous meaning using the body's own cells. And we, of course, are working very hard to keep and preserve that global leadership that we have today. So next slide, please. This is our disclaimer, and you are, of course, feel free to read that whenever you have the time. My name is Johan Liding, and I'm the CEO of XNK Therapeutics. I joined about a year ago. At the core, I'm an engineer and also an economist, and I've been working the last 13 years at Janssen. The last 5 years, I worked globally, and Janssen is the pharmaceutical company of Johnson & Johnson, the world's leading pharmaceutical company. The last 5 years, I worked globally in a team that was trying to look at the R&D portfolio and saying, how can we commercialize these assets? And at the same time, looked at the region and saying, what is it that you would like to sell? And basically trying to make a fit in between those two things. And I learned a lot, and hopefully I can bring a lot of that experience into this company and what we are currently doing. I have a personal interest in the research of multiple myeloma, a rare blood cancer, and was basically handpicked by the team behind this company to take this to its next step based on my global pharma experience and research in multiple myeloma. Next slide. If we take a look at XNK Therapeutics and why we believe this is a very good investment case. First of all, is built on the world's leading research on NK cells that is going on here at the Karolinska Institute. It was here in the mid-70s where the function of the NK cells were discovered, and today this is one of the world's leading research center when it comes to the research around how those cells work. And at the core, at our company, we have a platform, a technology that would allow us to expand and activate these NK cells. And by expanding, we mean multiplying them, making them many, many more, and activate, actually making them cytotoxic again, we found a way how to make them want to kill their target cells, their cancer cells again. This platform is both stable and versatile and will allow us to do many, many things. We come quite far in the development and the clinical development of the platform and its technology, and we have passed phase 1/2 study that we presented a year ago, showing good safety profile and a promising efficacy. We are now ready to take the next step, and before the summer we will start a phase 2 trial in the same indication, multiple myeloma, in combination with an anti-CD38 antibody called Sarclisa from Sanofi. So we're going into collaboration study together with Sanofi and the Karolinska Institute. If you look at the potential of this company, the price points that you can take are very high, and we have an effective production, and we can get a very, very good margin. So the price points are high, and the patient populations are quite large. So for these types of products, of course, the potential will be quite big. Next slide. We are not a new company. The company was founded back in 2011, and it was founded as a spin-off of the research that's been going on here at the Karolinska Institute. And the foundation was a research grant from Vinnova, which is a Swedish research foundation. And the whole concept was to trying to make a product, trying to commercialize the research that's been going on NK cells. Back in 2011, the interest of NK cell research was pretty low. The focus were on T cells, another part of the immune system. So the company could work in a relatively comfort zone and could develop the technology without having too much interest in the company. However, that has changed dramatically over the last 2-3 years. So we have developed the platform in an academic industry collaboration fashion. We have doing that through grants, and we are currently developing our current platform in a collaboration called ABGSC, and we're a proud member of the next big consortium here in Sweden called NextGen NK, who is trying to find the next generation of these therapies. That development has given us a patent portfolio. Today we have 3 patent families, and hopefully we'll soon file for a 4th patent family. The regulatory pathway also will come a bit further. We have an orphan drug designation that would allow us market exclusivity in both the US that we got back in the EU that we got back in 2018, and in the US that we got in the fall 2020. And as I said, from the clinical trial perspective, we started our first clinical trial back in 2015, a phase 1/2 clinical trial, and we presented that data last year at the EHA. And we are now ready to start our next big clinical trial, which is a phase 2 trial combination with anti-CD38 antibody. When I joined the company a year ago, it was a clear mission. It was a rapid development in the NK cell field, and this company wanted to maintain its leadership position in the autologous NK cells. So clear mission, and we just get going. We brought in money to be able to do that in April, 64 million Swedish krona in a private placement, and we just built up and announced our management. I'm extremely proud to have Johan Arskan joining us as a Chief Medical Officer. Johan has a background in hematology here at Huddinge. He's been treating quite many patients. He has been leading the clinical development today from melphalan for oncopeptides. And previously to that, he was working at Janssen when I was dealing with Janssen's anti-CD38 antibody, daratumumab. So he has an ideal background for joining us. At the same time, Professor Mikael Uhlin will also join us in the summer. Mikael is today a professor at KI in gamma delta T cells, but he also head of the clinical immunology here at Karolinska University Hospital. So with those 2 people coming on board, I believe we will have a dream team. Next slide. The current management that we have, and which we will then, of course, will expand with these people, is Evren Alishi, who is the founder of this company. He is today one of the, I would say, top 10 NK cell researcher in the world. Vera Franzén, who is helping us from the beginning with the regulatory pathways. She has a background from the Swedish MPA and has also worked within this field of cell and gene therapy for the last 10 years. Harriet Nahi, our clinical advisor, who was the PI for our first clinical trial, is today one of the leading hematologists in the Nordics. He is a former president of the Nordic Myeloma Study Group and probably the one that treats the most myeloma patients in Northern Europe. We also have a very seasoned CFO, Hans Eriksson, with a background at Ericsson and Elekta. And our current head of R&D, Stefan Mjenke, is also a very good NK cell researcher. And Marcus Lagerlöf, who many of you might know, has been working with the company for the last 5 years, working out our business development function and trying to position this company in a strategic way. Next slide. So we are working on natural killer cells, which are part of the body's innate immune system. And they were discovered here at the Karolinska Institute in the mid-1970s. And how these cells work naturally is your first line of defense to virus infections, but also to cancer development that naturally occurs in the body. And they actually work by recognizing cells that are coming from your own body. And they do that by every single cell that you have in your body express a MHC complex or a MHC receptor. And the NK cells, if they see these receptors on the cells, they say, this is a cell that belongs to my body, and I will not kill it. At the same time, you have ligands on the cell surface that's trying to activate these NK cells. And as long as they are in balance, nothing will happen. If you have a virus infection, they don't have these MHC receptors. So the NK cell will say, okay, this is a cell that doesn't belong to the body, and I will kill it. The same thing goes for cancer cells. When they start to grow quite rapidly, they lose these cell receptors, but they also will start to overexpress these ligands that activate the NK cells. And so the NK cells will recognize that this is a cell that doesn't belong to the body and will kill it. And this is a process that is going on naturally in your own body. Of course, we started with multiple myeloma, but there is nothing that would say that this wouldn't work for other cancer types. So our platform technology is basically we can scale it to multiple cancer indications, but we started with multiple myeloma. What really got me excited about this company is the development that has been going on in the NK cell field. So next slide, please. 2 years ago, when I was sitting at Janssen, before that, everybody was talking about T cells and the CAR T cells and the development of the T cells and how that would work. And then it was starting to bubble. People were starting to talk about NK cells, the part of the innate immune system that we are in. And there was some really cornerstone or major clinical trials that was coming out showing that we can actually get this to work. The NK cells will work, and the side effects will be quite different. Basically, the side effect profile that you will see on NK cells they're very few, and they seem to be very good to the body. They're much more targeted killer. So there was a lot of interest going on, and since about 2 years ago, the whole field has literally, exploded. There's been deals after deals after deals, and the development is very, very rapid. The good about this company is that it was founded 10 years ago. So, due to its history and its pace and the collaboration with the Karolinska Institute, it is in a very good position to participate in this race going forward. And today we are the leading company in the field of autologous NK cells. Next slide, please. The business model is pretty straightforward for a company like this. At our core, we have our platform technology. That platform technology allows us to expand and activate, multiply and make these cells cytotoxic towards different types of indications. That platform can be reiterated, so we can make it better and better and better. And every time we will make it better, we will have a new product. We have taken that platform technology further in its clinical development in multiple myeloma, and we passed phase 1-2 and are now ready to go into phase 2. That doesn't say that this platform wouldn't work for other cancer indications. We've currently screened around 70 other cancer indications and looked for the scientific rationale. If we can combine our product with an antibody, so we can work through antibody-dependent cytotoxicity to get synergistic effects, and also look for strong business cases. And hopefully in the near future, we'll come into a position where we could announce the development of further indications. We are today the leading company in autologous NK cells. There are a lot of buzz going around allogeneic NK cells, and of course, allogeneic cells has an advantage of being off the shelf. So you can basically produce them in advance, and then of course, when the individual gets sick, you have the drug ready to go. That's not possible with autologous because then you need to produce it when you actually have the patient in front of you. So you will have a different problem with logistics. However, autologous cells has some quite advantages to allogeneic one. First of all, the route to market, at least for our NK cells, will be much easier because it's not a transplantation. So the safety profile will be viewed differently from the regulatory authorities. Secondly, it's not a transplantation, so we don't have to immunosuppress the patients. So we can treat them with our NK cells without a preconditioning. Now, that would allow us to go after different target groups that the allogeneic cells really can't reach. Another interesting thing is that since it's an autologous product, we can give multiple dosing because we don't have to immunosuppress the patients. That means we can treat them, we can retreat, and then we can treat them again. And that is, of course, a clear advantage for a therapy. It can also be readily combined with these antibodies, which of course is optimal if you want to have synergistic effects. And based on our portfolio, since we've been such a company but that been around for so long time, we have a very long stability in our products. We can keep it in the freeze for almost 10 years. Next slide, please. If we look at the platform that we have, it's a pretty straightforward process. It starts by the patient donating 1 unit of blood, that's 450 milliliters. That blood is then shipped to us, where we take out our starting material and put that into the freezer. And we can then freeze and store that starting material until we feel we have the production line ready. Then we thaw it and start our process, and that's the third box there. That's a 15 to 21 day process where we expand and activate these NK cells. And it has to take some time because these cells will not really become cytotoxic before the day 10. So in this process, it takes some time to restore the functioning of the NK cells. After we have completed the production, we will freeze the product again. And as said, we have around 10 years stability data on this product. After that, the frozen product is shipped to the patient side where you can give the dosing repeatedly. And all this is being taken care of is open care. So we don't have to put in the patient to intensive care unit or whatever. You can give this in the open care and the patient can literally go home the same day. The process is closed and automated, which of course is important if you want to be able to scale this. And we are proud that we think we've done this from the right way from academic research when we were doing the first steps back in the mid 2000. The platform has given us, and the development has given us a couple of patent families. Next slide, please. Today we have 3 patent families that we filed for. It's a treatment patent that we have in the US. It's an activation and expansion patent, basically how the process works. Then we have a combination treatment patent that we combine our NK cells with a high-dose antiviral treatment. And that is an important patent because we believe that all autologous NK cells will be needed to be combined with high-dose antiviral treatment. And then we will soon file for our new and improved process. The good thing here is that we also have an orphan drug designation. We have that gives us market exclusivity both in the US and EU. But important to say when it comes to these cell and gene therapies, you cannot just take a process, even though you know how it works, without a clinical development. So you have protection by itself by being in this field because you can't transfer the clinical data. So everybody that wants to copy what we do will still have to do the clinical development. Next slide then. If we start to look at our clinical development for our process, we are working in the field of consolidation treatment. And that is the first step of frontline treatment of multiple myeloma patients. We come quite far. We passed phase 1-2 and are now ready to go into phase 2 in a combination with an anti-CD38 antibody. We have a preclinical data in smoldering, which is a pre-stage of multiple myeloma, and we know we can expand and activate these NK cells. We also know we can expand and activate these NK cells in the patient population that will not have this consolidation treatment. So basically, we can cover the entire field of multiple myeloma patients. Next slide, sir. Our first indication, what we're going for, is a consolidation treatment of patients who are undergoing a bone marrow transplant. So these are newly diagnosed multiple myeloma patients. They will come into the clinic and they will get diagnosed with multiple myeloma. They are considered young and healthy, which is basically below 70 years of age, so they will go for transplantation. And that's a package of treatments. First of all, you get an induction treatment. That's a combination of 3 different chemotherapies with the aim to reduce the cancer burden. After that, you will mobilize the stem cells and you will collect them from the peripheral blood. After that, you go in with a high-dose chemotherapy, trying to knock out everything. And by doing that, you take out all the cancer cells, but also your immune system. So you have to restart that by giving back the stem cells. At that specific point in time, all the cancer are not gone. They will still have, bits and pieces in the body that has not been taken care of. And the patient is very weak. And that is where we come in. We believe that our NK cells has ideal properties for really, destroying the remaining of the cancer cells, or as much as we can, in a very frail population where few other combinations actually can enter. And that will then go on with the whole aim of trying to really prolong the time until the patient's cancer eventually will get back. So what have we done then with the clinical trials? Next slide, please. We have done a first-in-human phase 1/2 clinical trial. We treated 6 patients here in Huddinge, and the primary endpoint was, of course, safety and tolerability, but we also looked at the efficacy. Next slide. So what is the data telling us? Well, we believe we have a very good safety profile, but also a promising efficacy. So on these patients that we treated, we didn't see any severe adverse events. The majority of the adverse events that we saw were grade 1, so they were mild, and they was being considered unrelated. It's things like upper respiratory infection, lumbago, diarrhea, these type of adverse events. There was, however, one thing that stood out, that the first 4 patients were developing shingles. And of course, we got quite worried about that. And we activated the entire network of NK cell researchers. And it actually happened that Hans Gustav Jungen, who also sits in our board of directors, who also a world-famous NK cell researcher, said, "Oh, I've done research in mice in the mid-1990s. And what is happening at these highly activated NK cells will look for the reservoir of chickenpox and basically reactivate the virus, and you will get shingles. That can easily be treated by a high-dose antiviral. And so we gave this treatment to the last 2 patients, and they did not develop shingles. And we also, based on that happening, also became filing for a patent. If we look at the efficacy side, very pleased, all of our patients are still alive after more than 5 years. That's, of course, good. If you look at the historical control group, roughly 70 to 75% is still alive, so 100% is on the upper side. The progression-free survival, which is the time until the cancer comes back, are 34 months. That's on the higher side, probably 28 to 30 months in a historical control group. What I really like about the PFS is that we have still 2 patients who, after about 5 years, still hasn't progressed. Next slide. If we look at the response, the destruction of myeloma cancer cells, you have the number of myeloma cancer cells on the y-axis, and what you can see wherever you look, we actually get down. So we will improve the response in all the patients where we can measure. And of course, that's really encouraging for us. What we also noticed that we have a biomarker, a granzyme B. When these NK cells are doing their killing, they're using perforin and granzymes, and we can measure the level of granzyme B. That's the next slide, please. And what you would see, first of all, you would like the NK cells, after they being fused, you would like them to see them going out in the body. They should not stay in the circulation. To the left, you see a graph showing the 3 infusions of every patient and what is happening with the granzyme B levels in the serum after 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 240 minutes. And the dosing are escalating, which means you would like to see higher and higher peaks. And we see exactly that. Then you would like to see the levels dropping off because you would like the NK cells to go out in the tissue. And that is exactly what we're seeing. So we know the NK cells that we infused, they're being uptaken by the body in the way we would like it to see. But what really making us think this is fantastic is what happened in the bone marrow. So we have bone marrow measurements 4 weeks after the last infusion. and we can see elevated levels of granzyme B in all the patients where we have bone marrow. To us, that tells us our NK cells are still in the bone marrow and are still active. Next slide, please. So, our next step. Well, before the summer, we hopefully will start our combination trial where we are going to combine our NK cells with Sanofi's anti-CD38 antibody Sarclisa. And that's going to give us, we think, very strong synergistic effects because these antibodies, they are using the body's own NK cells to do the killing. So if we add a lot of highly activated NK cells, we believe there will be strong synergistic effect. At the same time, these antibodies are depleting the pool of NK cells in the body, getting the patient more prone to get infected by virus. So by adding NK cells, we hopefully can take away the side effect problem that these antibodies has as well. So hopefully this trial will give us strong data on the efficacy on combination. Next slide, please. So we are also planning more trials to develop our clinical pathway for this compound, and we are actually designing a monotherapy trial right now, which we believe give us further data for our product. However, we will not stop within multiple myeloma, as I said. Next slide, please. We have several tangible opportunities to go for other cancer indications. And there we are looking for these pathways where we have an antibody that we can combine with, but also point in the treatment where we have a low cancer burden, because we believe that our NK cell therapy will have an optimal place in the treatment where you have a low cancer burden. And we are currently doing quite a lot of work to identify this. And hopefully we'll be able to out-license one or two of these indications. So to sum it up, next slide, please. XNK Therapeutics is a global leading company in the field of autologous NK cells. We are built here on the research in Karolinska Institute and taking advantages of this whole infrastructure. At our core, we have a platform technology that is both stable and versatile and would allow us to do many different things. We come quite far in the clinical development of our compound in multiple myeloma, and we're now ready to enter a phase 2 clinical trial in combination with Sanofi's anti-CD38 antibody and in collaboration with the Karolinska Institute. If you look at the financial view of these type of companies, the opportunity and the potential is very high. Thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Johan, for that presentation. I think we have time for just one brief question. As you said, you've completed a pre-IPO placement. What can you say about your potential IPO plans going forward?
Well, first of all, right now we have a we have a lot of money in our pockets, which is good, so we can really do the expansion as we wish, and we can really accelerate. We haven't made any final decisions on the plan for IPO yet, but we are evaluating all options.
Great. In the interest of time, I'm afraid we have to move on there, but thank you very much for an interesting presentation, Johan.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to ABG Sundal Collier Pre-IPO seminar. My name is Olof Cederholm and I'm the sector lead on the Industrial and Renewable Research team in Stockholm. With me today I have Jenny Keisu, the CEO of Aktier. With that, I'll just hand over to you, Jenny, and we can go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you for having me, Olof. So if you can flip the slide, you can look at me instead of our boat, but you have the boat there as well. So I'm Jenny Keisu. I'm the CEO of Aktier and have been over the last couple of years. I started my career as a business lawyer with Mannheimer Swartling, working predominantly with private and public M&A, and I've spent the last 10 years in the private equity industry. I was with Nordic Capital for quite a few years, but then I ventured on to be part of the team who founded Summa Equity, a private equity fund focusing on sustainable investments. So I've been doing this for quite some time, and I think this is an amazing case to invest in, hence why I'm involved. So if we flip to the next slide, you'll see what I mean. So I think we should be able to show a video here. If you want to go back and try again.
There you go. No.
In the land of the brave, in our fearless state, there's a wild heart running away. I let my ship drift, I can navigate within. There's a place where dreamers collide. Can you guide me?
Thank you. Hopefully you got a better sense of our product now, and it is an incredible user experience. And this is the predominant reason, of course, why we're growing so fast. So to explain in briefly, because after having seen that movie, you probably think we're a boating company. We're not. We're a technology company in the recreational boating industry, and we're a front runner. So we have the first mover advantage. I get one call per week with other companies asking if they can buy our drivetrain. That's how good we are, because we've cracked the code as to how to go both far and fast. So most electrical boating company, they make boats that can go slow but far. So 12 knots is fairly fast for an electric boat. 15 knots is very fast. Our boat can easily, you can use that as a normal boat. You can go out wakeboarding, you can go out to play with your friends. You can go fast if you want to, up to 35 knots. And if you go in lower speeds, you can go on for more than 20 hours. And this is a reason why we are the leader in this field. Our boats have outstanding performance, as I mentioned. We also have new proprietary technology that is both for our B2C customers, but also we built a lot of software entailing that we have B2B and even B2G clients. And by B2G, I mean business to government. So quite a few of our customers are smart cities that can look at all the boats at the same time. Since the boat is connected at all times, 24/7, we download 150 data points per second, and we have quite advanced software on that. The design is built for manufacture, entailing that we have a scalable and modular design. We recently raised capital to set up our second production facility in Sweden, and here we will make boats much faster than anyone else. I will get back to that, but a hull is normal in this industry, built in 10 days, or 10 days or a bit more, I should say. I think best class in world at the moment is 8 days, and we are going to make ours in 2 days very soon. So scalable and modular design. We can change anything in the boat. We can change a battery. The modules come on and off. The whole system is designed so that we can shift the battery, not only for an exactly the same battery, we can also shift to another type of battery, and we don't need to rewrite the code based on that. So all of this is to say that we built a company that is leading in its industry. We have lots of software on top of that, scalable and modular design, and this is why we're growing so fast. If we can flip to the next slide, please. So key investment highlights. I mentioned we are the front runner, and we are really riding on the wave of all the mega trends here. Just yesterday, the USA came out and said that they will have tax subsidies for electrical boats, even more so if they are built in the US. We will be building our boats in the US within the next 12 months as well. Currently only building in Sweden. We have Amsterdam being fully fossil free in 2025, Norway in 2026. This is happening fast. We have also an amazing products. I'll get back to that in a minute, with unique customer experience. And this is, the same reason if you've been in a Tesla or an electric car for the first time. It's an amazing experience. The reason why you're shifting is not because you want to go green. It's because the user experience is so good, it makes it difficult to go back. We have the same. Also diversified revenue streams, hardware being the boat is of course the largest one, but we have software as a service, we have recurring revenues, etc. We have a strong diversified team. I've done similar journeys before, built up companies, made them hugely successful, so have quite a few of my colleagues. We are a team of just north of 50 people, most of us working out of central Stockholm, but we also have a team on the ground in, for example, the US. So from my perspective, having been an investor for 10 years, this is an attractive case, and hopefully you will agree with me after having looked at this presentation. Next slide. Sustainable boating is here to stay. This is just to tell you how much recreational boating is impacting on climate crisis. For example, our 3 months of recreational boating during summertime in Sweden equals to a full year, 30% of a full year of domestic flights in terms of CO2 emissions. Going by your recreational boat during the 3 summer months is equivalent to 3.5 years of car usage, etc. So this is one of the reasons why we're seeing so much legislation at the moment. If we go to the next slide. So you can debate how quickly we will have the transition from traditional combustion engine boats to electrical boats. You can debate the same within the car industry. What we can say is that it will grow. Difficult to say if it will grow as fast or as much as it's done within the automotive sector. However, I'm here to tell you that if you can build an electric boat, you will be able to sell it. We were the first one to offer CE certified boats. Doesn't matter. Everyone that can build an electric motor boat is going to sell it. So you can see how small portions of the market we need to take. I'm not sure who will take the rest because there aren't many out there and the market is huge. This is why we have so much demand. We need to put up new factories. We sell much more than we can produce. So you don't have to believe in a crazy uptick or expansion of this segment, even if most do. You can for sure supply everything you can build. That's how it looks like and will for the next couple of years. Also, an interesting change aside from the electrification part is of course that most things go online now, not only based on COVID, but based on the fact that customers changed their behavior. So Volvo Cars a few weeks or now a couple of months back, I think, they announced that they will, as of 2030, only sell electric cars, and they will only sell those online. We, of course, think that this is hugely interesting, also because we're so big online. We are already now the biggest electric boat brand online, but we're number 8 of all brands in total in the boating industry, not just electric. So we, of course, welcome this change. If we look at the next slide. So this is to tell you a bit about our boat. You saw the video. We have outstanding performance and speed. You can play along with a wakeboard or water skis or similar for a couple of hours. You can also go for more than 20 hours in lower speed. You have absolutely no fumes since the boat is electric, and no noise. So it's very powerful. We have an amazing acceleration. You go out, you can only hear wind and water. You need to try this product. It's an amazing experience. We have a unique and modular design. So the boat that we're currently selling, you can see this on the slide. It's called Elex. And everything you see here on the back of the boat is modular. So you see one of my colleagues here, Jens, he's out fishing. He uses one of the sofas and then the fishing bench. You can also see a social setting on the top, which is 2 sofas and a table, and that can convert into a sunbed. We have diving modules, etc. This works like an SUV, so you can clip them on, clip them off, so you can have the boat bare. You can have it with different modules, so it's very versatile. We have new proprietary software, not only the drivetrain, but also the fact that the boat is always connected. We always download data points, entails that there's no outboard motor to steal. It's impossible to steal the boat. We can turn it off or shut it down. Wherever the boat is in the world, we can always see where it is. So this makes it highly interesting from a perspective that no one can steal your boat. Sustainability for us is 3 things. One is, of course, that we're not harming the environment while we're out in it. We don't emit any fumes. We don't emit noise. Also, we try to build our boat out of sustainable materials. We use recycled plastic instead of plastic. We use cork instead of teak. We can even build the boats out of flax fiber instead of glass fiber in order to make them sustainable. On top of that, we want to build our boats in a sustainable way, which is the reason why we're setting up our second factory in Sweden now, which will not have any emission that you will typically see based on what you're producing. So most boat factories, there are people in more or less hazmat suits with breathers walking around. It smells a lot. You will not see that in our factory. Everything is done in climate controlled boxes with active filters in order to make our workers safe, so as the environments. If we flip to the next slide, this is to show you the software in our drivetrain. So first of all, you have embedded in canvas. That's very much like you have in cars. Then the NMEA 2000 system is what you have in boats. That's how you connect radar and other things that you typically have on a boat. That is connected to the web and then the cloud, entailing that if you are a private individual, you can see where your boat is, you can see the state of charge, whether the pumps are going, you can ring fence it. You can do much of those over laptop, your cell phone, or even your smartwatch. We also have the boating control tower that you can see on the high up on the right hand side of this presentation. Boating control tower is what our B2B or B2G customers are using. Then they can see all the boats, not only one. They can see where they are. They can communicate in between the boats. There's booking system. You can plan routes and charging, etc. So this is sort of the secret sauce in what we do. Most of the hardware in the boat, well, some are developed by us because the brackets need to be built a certain way, but most of it you can buy anywhere. The secret sauce is how you put it together, hence the software. If we flip to the next slide, this is also on top of that, we have lots of cool IoT features. This is my smartwatch. This starts my boat. The boat feels that I'm coming closer. It gets in standby mode. I only push a button to have the boat start, very much like a modern car. If I fall overboard, the boat can sense that I'm either too far away or that I'm underwater, and then it shuts the boat down. So it works like a man overboard or a dead man's grip. We of course have the mobile, and this is a screenshot of how it looks like when you can see your boat, where it is, and different dashboards. If we flip to the next slide. So I mentioned we're currently selling the ELEX. We launched that and started to selling it to customers since we got the CE certification, which was in 2020. We are selling that one. We're selling much more than we can produce, and hence the reason why we are now setting up our second factory in Sweden. We're already now looking at the factory in the US because we see such a big demand since we launched there in March this year. Early next year, we will also launch a cabin version. This will be on the same platform, so same drivetrain, similar hull, but we put a cabin on top of it. This will be the world's first electric cabin boat. Slightly more complicated, slightly more expensive than the one we're having. And then late next year, we will be out with a 6-meter boat, which will be much more like a boat you can buy for the first time. Some think that 8 meters or 9 meters is a very large boat if you don't have any boating experience at all. 6 meter is more for everyone, and it would also be much more affordable because by then we will have our factory up and running. We can produce boats at a much more attractive value, and also we will be able to source more efficiently than we can today with our current volumes being in a scale-up mode. If we flip to the next slide, this is just to show you that we have very diversified revenue streams. Most of what we have today is hardware, and that is what we're counting on. However, we have also revenues from alarm system, insurance. The insurance companies, of course, love insuring this boat since it literally cannot be stolen. We download a lot of data. We have partnerships with boat sharing companies, etc. We have extended services and warranties. We've actually turned that into a revenue center. So this is just to say, and I can give you an example. One of my B2G customers, being a smart city, we charge them $9,000 per year per boat for the software as a service solution that we're providing them with. So we have lots of those revenue streams as well. So it's not just a hardware company, not just a boating company. If we flip to the next slide, this is just to show you I have a crazy experienced team. Most of them are engineers, many from very successful ventures before, many of them from the traditional boating industries as well. So super proud of my team, much more like a startup than a classical boating company. If you flip to the next slide, this is also to show you, I mentioned our new factory where we will have industrial robots, assembly line, sustainable production products. We design for manufacturing, entailing that it is our supply chain people that decides what goes into the boat, not the engineer, and hence that takes down our bill of materials quite significantly. And when we've set up the factory in the second factory in Sweden fully, that's on the way now, we will have a blueprint, and then we will set the exactly same factory up in different places in the world. Second one will be in the United States. And if we flip to the next slide, this just to conclude, we are the front runner in this highly interesting, quickly growing field of electric leisure boating. All regulation and similar are playing in our favor, but we don't need that because we have an amazing customer experience. We have much more demand that we can supply, even with our new factory. We have diversified revenue streams. We have an amazing team that has done this before. And last but not least, it is a highly interesting financial case. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. So if you show the next slide, I believe this shows that I'm done. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jenny. A few questions, if I may. It's demand seems to not to be the problem, so to speak. What are the obstacles now for you to grow? you said a US plant in 12 months. Is that going to be enough? And although you recently did the pre-IPO with ABG, what are your plans for further financing help? Are you looking at an IPO, or what's the thought process there?
Yes, so the idea is to go for an IPO within the next 12 months, and that is what we're working towards at the moment. We have, as you mentioned, more demand than we can supply. So the current headache is getting the new factory in Sweden up as quickly as possible. Recruiting is another, I wouldn't say obstacle, but it takes time. I mean, how we could grow as fast as we can. However, the difficult piece is to get the right people in place, right? So we're currently hiring somewhere between 1 and 3 people per week. I cannot hire faster than that. I cannot find the right talent faster than that. We've been very fortunate with being able to find robots, operators, CNC operators, etc. But these are tricky people to find. So for now, that's fine, but it's difficult to grow that fast.
Yeah, of course. And looking at a timeline on your expansion, you said you're really pushing to get the second factory done in Sweden. When is that reasonable? You know, when could that happen? And then also in the US, where are you looking at in terms of locations?
So in Sweden, we are in process. We're already buying the machinery and the robots. Everything is in process. We believe we would have the production line fully up and running in November this year. So in December, we should have an output of that factory of 400 boats per year. So very much be ready for next year in line with our case. So that should be fine. If you look at US, we're currently in dialogues with several states. And the reason why we haven't contracted or decided yet is because so much is moving in terms of legislation and subsidies. So we have really interesting dialogues with 6 states that have approached us because they want us to come there and to build their boats there. We are now debating whether we will have an assembly line first or a full-blown factory. We want to have the factory in Sweden done, because when you build your house, you know exactly how you would do the second time. So we'll have that ready before we set a full-blown factory up. We're now looking into whether we should have an assembly line in the meantime. Will be assembly hulls being made externally and our drivetrain.
Yeah, and thinking about the drivetrain, you mentioned that you get incoming calls from people wanting to buy the drivetrain from you. How is that? Is that patented, or how do you protect the product sort of?
So it is a code. So I protect it through making sure that my developers do not want to go anywhere else. But it's also dynamic, as I mentioned. If we are changing a battery, the code changes a bit. So it's code, hence we have not gone for patents. This area moves so quickly so that we don't think it's worthwhile protecting it from that perspective. In a few years, every boat sold will be electric one way or another. We're just 3 to 5 years ahead of everyone. So that's having said that, you could also, of course, sell your drivetrain, but from my perspective, do you want to do what Apple has done and have that product, or do you want to do what Android has done? And we have decided we need to focus on getting up capacity. We need to build the boats. So that's what we are focusing on, selling and building boats. We're not selling our drivetrain.
Excellent. And my last question on the revenue streams. I mean, it's the add-on services look very interesting. How do you foresee sort of your sales or revenue streams a few years out? Let's say you have the second factory is up, there is one in the US, so you have a good sort of solid volume of hardware. How much do you think software could generate in that, and recurring revenues could generate in sort of a more mature situation?
So to make it easy for us, we're actually not counting on any other revenues than the hardware, and still the case is super interesting. That makes it very easy for us. We already now have lots of recurring revenue and software as a service, but I also want to be able to add us on when we have huge contract with states or similar, so that we add the software for free. So for now, which we do sometimes and sometimes not, So we want to have that to be able to put it on. So for now, that's icing on the cake. But if you ask me, I think you can look at Tesla to some extent, at least, where you can, you can decide whether you want to have the autopilot or the auto driving or something like that. We can probably have a similar setup if we want to, but I would say that is 5 years out to get there. So for now, I'm not even counting on it.
Very good. With that, thank you very much, Jenny, for taking the time to spend it with us and to talk about this exciting company. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Olof. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Hello everyone and welcome back to today's seminar together with ABG and the upcoming presentation of Eways. My name is Ophelia Aspemyr and I'm an equity research analyst here at ABG, primarily covering clean tech and renewable stocks. I today have the pleasure to introduce Eways CEO Niklas Sahlberg-Gren that will start off with the presentation. But I won't steal any more of your time, so please go ahead, Niklas.
Thank you, Ophelia. Thank you. And thank you, ABG, for having me here. Just to start by saying that we've made this agreement with ABG to help us with the pre-IPO and also the IPO, and that the IPO will take place within 12 months from now. So, and if you could please go to, I'll just say this, if I move into the presentation, actually the picture that you see now is from Täby Centrum in Stockholm, where we have our charging stations, but you can please move to the next picture or next slide. Well, my name is Niklas Sahlgren and I founded Eways back in 2015 together with my wife Petra. And my background is that I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I've been, even from university, I started my first company at KTH in Kista back in '96, and I've been having different startups in different categories all over through the years. I took a break and worked also a couple of years heading the IT department at Skanska IT Solutions in Sweden. So I have some background within more larger corporations also. Petra has a background within systems development, and she's worked with companies like Acando and HiQ for many years, heading different IT projects. So in the family, we're a perfect match, sort of, where I take care of a customer, do a lot of thinking about the business development, and Petra is the person that can make this happen and build our cloud solutions. So that's a perfect match. And Eways is, as we kid around saying, maybe our fourth child, and sometimes the child that takes most of our time. But so we have 3 other children. Back in 2012, I joined the Yancy team, which was a startup working on IoT solutions, mainly hooking up different types of sensors. So I had a significant amount of the nice software that I looked for different hardware to hook up to. And I stumbled across Tesla, and I met the first Tesla team that came to Sweden. I drove the first Model S, and I fell completely in love with the whole thinking around fossil free and being able to push out the fossil dependency that we have in society, and also the tremendous vehicle that they have sold in so many and the success they've had now. So that was the bit about the background. Petra and I decided to work with impact as entrepreneurs. So Eways was founded based on that. And I think you can go to the next slide now. As you've sort of studied, I guess, the industry of the automobile industry, it's changed quite significantly the last 5 years, I would say, maybe or mostly driven by Tesla and their cars. All of the manufacturers today in our part of the world are behind the electricity and the fossil-free concept now. There are no other or no automobile marketers that will push or sell fossil-based vehicles in the future. And our vision and what we do is to make it easy for everyone to drive a vehicle. We build a fast network of chargers, and we want the next generation to be fossil-free or free to drive on electricity, and not be able to be in a situation where you have to need to use fossil anymore, at least not for the cars. And there are many big switches now in the market. There are many new cars coming, and the prices are dropping significantly, and the amount of new models that are coming out is significant over the next coming years. I think also you can go to the next slide now. Keep up the pace a bit. So what do Eways do then? Well, if you look at this slide from the bottom and up, we help society to become fossil free by making it easy to charge a vehicle And our main market is what you call ordinary charging, which is in the sustainable city, basically. It's ordinary driving. You do a lot of things with your car. Usually you start from home and you go to maybe your office and you do different errands. So it's like a triangle of things and activities that you do with your car. This is the bulk of all the driving that people do. And our business model is that we focus on the places that you either start or you visit with your car. So it's either the home, which is usually a villa, or a toa, actually meaning the bostadsrätt in Swedish. The office, public places. Those are the four main places where we focus our business model. We want it to be really easy to drive an EV. So in order to do that, you need to have a charger basically at home, and you need to have extra charging on the go sort of in activity. Our fifth segment is transportation, where we focus on the last mileage. We help companies like DHL and Bring to charge their vehicles so that they can deliver to our homes and all over the city in a fossil-free way. So there is an abundance of a lot of different packaging that we do for these 5 different segments, but they all have the 3 sort of objects that you see on higher up on the page. There's always a hardware element here. You need a charging station. We work with 5 different vendors of hardware stations, and they're all hooked up to our cloud solution. So we buy and sell hardware, and they're all hooked up into our smart charging network, sort of. So we're hardware agnostic in that way. There's a low risk in our business model also, that if someone can't deliver a hardware, we can always change to another. Our main focus is our cloud platform, and it's a hub for all different types of connections that we do with different hardware. And we also have a payment solution in the platform. And we also have a payment API so that we can connect even traditional payment solutions that we have already online. These charging stations that we are smart, and we hook them up to our network using internet. And then they stay there at least for 10 to 15 years, and preferably we will also change them in the future. And so it's a very long customer journey that we have. And so service is our third element here, where we have a customer support 24/7, 365 actually. So you can, as an owner or as a user, you can call us 24/7, and we will help everyone. And we also do a lot of operation and maintenance in this field. So, and today we have about 8,000 connected charging stations, and we released a press release today with EasyPark that we have 1,000 connected EasyPark charging stations, meaning that you can start your charging with the EasyPark app. We do about 500,000 charging sessions rolling 12 months. So it's a quite significant network that we have now, and we're the leader in Sweden. So please go to the next slide. So our journey started back in 2015, and I'll just run through some significant things that we did. We signed an agreement with Atrium Ljungberg, being one of the leading real estate owners in Sweden back in 2018. And within a year, we launched 1,000 charging points in their network of real estate, and it's a mixture of office and shopping centers, basically. And so Atrium Ljungberg was a significant deal for us, where we sort of would train and deliver a lot of charging stations. That year, we also got Skanska as a customer, so we have their headquarters here in Stockholm, where we have 50 charge points was the initial order. And then we were the first operator to integrate with Swish. As I said, we want to make it really easy to charge your car. So when you come to a charging stations and you have no means of starting it or paying for it, we thought that Swish would be a great idea, and it's been a huge success. And basically, you scan only with the Swish app, and you can start everything with your Swish app. And that partnership continues also with Swish. In around last year, we signed an agreement with Apcoa, Apcoa being the largest parking operator in Europe, and we are now integrating with their Apcoa Flow app. So it will be an Eways network of chargers in the Apcoa parking spaces in Sweden to start with, and then the consumer will be able to start charging with the Apcoa app then. And within transportation, we also signed a partnership with Insile, a very exciting company that work a lot with the last mileage. And when you order the Insile, you will come to a page on the internet where you can buy an Eways charging station, and we deliver it and installed and ready. So we have always been very focused on growth, of course, but we've also been focused on profitability. To be able to make money and have a profit margin has always been important for us. And as you can see, the EBIT has been between 5 and 1%. And we have had a significant growth over the years, and we can see that this growth will ramp up even now. The fuel of the new cars is a fuel sort of in our business. New exciting vehicles that will come up in the market is really driving our business. So we can foresee a significant growth of the coming 10 years, I would say. So we can go to the next slide. And this growth, I would say, is of course fueled by the cars coming out. And today we have about 2 million EVs, and it will grow significantly. And this will, of course, drive the market for chargers. And there's sometimes a misperception, I think, in the market. There's a lot of media covering high-speed charging, where you stop and you wait for 30 minutes and then you drive on. I think that this is a misperception, sort of, where most of the driving, you don't drive that way. You use it in your daily sort of commute, and to this market with home and work charging is significantly larger. And it's also a lot lower risks. You know that when you set up a charger at home at someone in a TOA, or you put it in an office or in a shopping center, you know that they will be used in a very high degree of charging, and you also have a more of a foreseeable business in that sense if you compare to the high speed. I also think that the efficiency of the cars will, of course, be a lot better, and it's possible that we will drive by all of these fast chargers when the cars will be more efficient and the batteries will be larger. So I think you can go to the next slide. So please go. Yes, thank you. So, and with extreme growth coming, we have thought a lot about this, and we have our cloud solution that you see. We call it our ecosystem, and it's an ecosystem that support the modern charging for the consumers. And we want to be able to have an open platform where we can take care of the consumer in all of these 5 segments. And many parts of the business that we have is based on APIs. So if you look at this picture from below, you can see that we have hardware connected to the cloud from below, and we're using only standards here. So this is a very standardized way of working, internet standards. So we can hook up basically any hardware that are using the protocols. And then we have all of the transactions and all of the charging sessions combined in our cloud, basically. And on the top level, you can see the different APIs that we can publish. From one side is, for instance, a partner API, where we can have different partners that want to build specific apps. I will talk a bit about more of that later. And then we have payment APIs, Swish, Mobil, EasyPark, Apcoa, and of course, prepared for roaming. Many of our customers also have fleet companies that They can also get information from us from all of the charging sessions in an API directly to companies like Volvo Finans, CarPay, and so on. So I think you can go to the next slide. This, of course, will cater and be able to have this extreme growth. So please jump to the next slide. We have been very fortunate to have a lot of very demanding and high quality companies as a blue chip customer base. And we have divided them into different segments. So you have the office, public, and transport. And then within office, you have corporate, real estate, and utility. And I can pinpoint really quickly here our position in the market as an independent charging operator makes it easy for us, or easier at least, to work with local energy companies. We're not seen as a competitor to them, like Vattenfall would be, for instance. So they come to us and we partner with them. So Göteborg Energi, for instance, or Höganäs Energi, or Gislaved Energi, they become local partners that can sell Eways locally, and that business model works very well. We're also fortunate to be able to work with basically all of the real estate companies that you know on the Stockholm Stock Exchange. I'm sure that you're quite familiar with all of them. Just recently, we signed a frame agreement with Backa Hill. So we will put up now charging stations for the summer at Torekov Hotel, Båstad Hotel, and Båstad Entré. So if you go to Båstad this summer, we can help you with charging. Quick also on public is that we've been fortunate to win also tenders for a lot of the different parking companies. So it's Parking Malmö, Stockholm Parkering, and the list is quite long actually. And we also now are putting up 154 charging points at Väla Centrum in Helsingborg. So I think you can move to the next slide. Ericsson is a good example of what we do. We have 64 outlets in Kista, and we have installed them together with Core Service Management that we work with. And we deliver also customized app together with Core, built on our API so that the Ericsson employee can find and see in which garage there are available charging stations rather than driving around. And then Ericsson employees start their charging with our charge cards. So all of the employees at Ericsson that want to charge, they become an Eways customer. And we also have a set of possibilities where we build unique web shops for the different employee groups. So for Ericsson, they can go in at eways.se and buy a charging station for their home, basically. And you can move to the next slide. The business that we have has basically a hardware and installation part in it, always. In rare cases, we take over other operators. It's happened, and I think we will see more of that in the future, where we take over others. But the significant part of our revenue is hardware and installation. And once it's installed, we have a nice set of recurring revenues. And we take a revenue or a service for hooking up to the cloud and also our customer service. And then to be able to hook up to our API, there's also a firm monthly fee per outlet. And then when you start charging using our payment API, for instance, you use EasyPark or Apcoa Flow or our charge cards, there is a transaction fee and it's around 15%. So basically, we build this network and the customers pay for the network. We install it. There's a gross margin there. And then we have a recurring revenue that comes and we have basically no churn at all. So the customers enjoy our service and they stay with us. So there's a very long tail of recurring revenue that we have here, which is a bit of a dream come true for an entrepreneur. It's always nice to have a stability in the business, and it's foreseeable, and it's also part of taking care of the customer and helping them to charge. So it all comes together nicely. So you can go to the next slide. So we would see ourselves as a market leader in Sweden now, and the reason that we're in this IPO process is that I feel that the market will grow rapidly now, much more faster than it's done the previous 6 years. So the next coming 6 years will be extremely high growth. And we want to take the knowledge that we have now and go first into the Nordic countries, Finland, Oslo, or Finland, Norway, and Denmark, and then move on also to UK, France, and Germany, where there is a huge demand for charging. And I think within our field, we hear and we see that we are at this point a first mover, sort of. So I think you can go also to the next slide. So to conclude, I see that in Sweden we've been very significant, and it's been a good role to be so quick in the market and first. And I see that in the market that we have currently, we are a first mover. I also see that our customers enjoy the full service offering that we have. Many of our competitors, they only sell hardware. We work with a full service proposition, sort of helping them with charging, helping them with creating revenue also, which is important. We have a really strong customer base. I think the full service offering has given us this customer base. And it's also so that in our market, as in many markets, the references that we have are sort of significant and very important for the next customer also. And our business scales very well with a high degree of recurring revenue. It's a stability in the business that we like. And I think also that going to the market, we've trained now a lot. We are almost 40 employees currently. And we work closely to the market and closely to the customers. And we've tried also the concept store in Täby Centrum. It works really well. We know that the market is thirsting for information and know-how about charging, so we help them with this. And we have a strong track record these years that we've had. The first 4 years was really, I would say, demanded a lot of endurance and willpower. And now we've enjoyed a market now for at least 2 years now with more cars, which is the fuel. And we can see that there's so many different cars coming out now, and it will drive our business nicely. So I think you can go to the last page now. So what it's all about is to say goodbye to the petrol station. And I can say that they have basically no role in the new sustainable city. And that our way of working with charging is really what the customer wants. And I look forward to the future. So hej då macken from us. So that concludes my presentation, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Thank you very much for a good presentation and introduction to Eways, Niklas. So I would like to start to discuss your customers, and I would like to hear about your typical, but also your most preferred customer, and where do you see the most potential?
Well, I think I see basically potential in all our segments, but there's a huge potential in the home market, where there's the number, especially within TOAS, as meaning bostadsrätt and samfällighet here in Sweden, but it's the same system set up in the rest of Europe, where you would pretty much need to have a one-to-one sort of relationship. If you have one car, you need to have a charging station. So there is no such thing as borrowing from each other and so on. We want to use a low efficiency level of charging, which is the most sustainable way of doing it. So you want to charge when you're not using your car. That's the most smart thing to do, and it's a good sustainable way of doing it. And so I think that market is really interesting, and that's also where our concept stores come in, where we meet these customers. Anyone who's been involved in a TOA bostadsrätt know that purchasing things is quite of a significant project, and we help them with this, and we've been really successful with this segment also. But I also think that transportation is really important from a CO2 perspective, where today we deliver these transport companies. They deliver a lot of goods to the homes everywhere, and they use fossil to do it. And I think from a sustainability perspective, transportation is really interesting also.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to say, but we have to round off here. Thank you very much, Niklas. Very good of you.
Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you. Thank you.
Hi and welcome to the next presentation. My name is Christer Linde. I'm Global Co-Head of Research. And the next presentation will be Fishbrain, and we have the CEO, Johan Attby, with us. So Johan, welcome and please do your presentation.
Thank you so much. So hello everyone, my name is Johan Attby, CEO and co-founder of Fishbrain. And before I dive into the presentation, I wanted to give you a little bit on the backstory behind Fishbrain, because there's always a story behind every company, right? So start with I've been an entrepreneur for the last 15 something years, but I actually started up my career in academia. So I got a master's in mathematics and physics, and then I went straight for a PhD in AI. Note that this is long before the AI hype. So I actually did it for a genuine interest in mathematics. But so I spent some time at the, started in Sweden, but I spent some time at the Santa Fe Institute in New Mexico, which is this fantastic place where they have 3 or 4 Nobel Prize winners. And over there, I got super excited because looking at these professors, they weren't just great in their area of expertise, but some of them also started a couple of companies, and some of them quite successfully. And I was 20 something. Of course, I was super young and naive. So I thought that I could do the same, which of course I couldn't. The company I started did good. My career in academia ended right there. So started the company, raised venture capital, started company in Sweden, moved to Silicon Valley in 2007. Then we got some good momentum, and the business was acquired by an American company in 2011. And after the acquisition, I was locked in for a year and a half, and I knew I didn't want to stay with the buyer because it was one of those huge, large companies. And I'm an entrepreneur. I really like, especially the phase we're in right now at Fishbrain, where it's about growth, core monetization is working. But how do you scale that? Not 1-2% per year, but 50-100% per year. I think that's the most exciting phase. So I did some angel investing. I did speaking gigs, joined boards, was advisor to a bunch of companies. But frankly, I spent a fair bit of time thinking about what should be my next company. And not a big surprise given my background in mathematics, I think in numbers. So I started to think about what are the next macro trends that I believe in. And of course, it's not that I have a crystal ball that you at ABG don't have, or investors like Greylock, Sequoia, Goldman Sachs, but you have to believe in something. And I came to 2 conclusions that I think are pretty obvious today, but that wasn't the case 7 years ago when we started Fishbrain. Number 1 is if you have a passion for something, doesn't matter what it is, you will have a much better engagement if you're in a group of like-minded versus a group of friends. Because if you look at general social platforms like Facebook or Instagram or like TikTok these days, you don't get any good engagement if you post something that's very narrow, very specific. Those platforms are designed for content like kittens and party pictures and travel pictures, content that everyone can engage with. Second, I'm a huge believer in, I think there are a lot of untapped opportunities around crowdsourcing of data, especially using this mobile device. And of course, like Facebook, they do it for targeting ads, which is a great business proposition. Just look at the quarterly report if you doubt that. But personally, I'm much more like companies like Eways, where you crowdsource traffic information and you deliver that as a fantastic service for the customers. So long story short, over to Fishbrain. So I wrote a blog post saying that I thought there would be an opportunity for vertical social networks, and especially for the big hobbies where you can actually take the data, crowdsource the data, and turn that as a service for the customers. And this was published by one of those Silicon Valley tech blogs, Pando Daily. And I got a ton of feedback. I got feedback from Mark Andreessen himself at Andreessen Horowitz. I got feedback from the folks over at Sequoia, Greylock, basically all investors in Facebook saying, hey, we strongly believe in this. So I decided this is what I want to do. I looked at the number of verticals, but pretty quickly honed in on fishing. First of all, I stumbled upon an article, I think it was in Forbes, listing the world's 10 largest hobbies. And guess what? Sport fishing, this is by spending. There are more people running than fishing, but by spending, sport fishing is the world by far largest hobbies. It's very global, big in the States, big in Europe, big in Asia. So, and also when it comes to fishing, it's the perfect vertical for a social network, because fishing is almost 100% about bragging. Very few people actually keep their catch. They practice what's called catch and release. So already today, they take a picture or increasingly so even a video before they throw the fish back in the water again. So they do want to share their experience in fishing. And on the data side, the fact is, if you ask 100 avid anglers when, where, and how to fish, you will get exactly 100 different answers. And I thought that cannot be true, right? Because this is like Waze. One person can only drive that much. One person can only fish that much. So if you crowdsource a huge data of sport fishing data, make it very granular, you can probably, using machine learning, give anglers a much better fishing forecast than the best avid angler in the world. And fast forward 7 years, this is our key selling point behind the paywall. So that's basically the backstory of Fishbrain. Next slide, please. And so briefly describing what we do today. So there's anglers, we're not changing behavior here because anglers do take a picture or a video, but we have streamlined that process. So we automatically gather, I think, around 25 parameters when anglers do that. From the image, we can automatically, using image recognition, we can identify the species automatically. And this is something we co-developed with Google, and they featured us on their keynote presentation recently. And then we automatically get the weather conditions. Was it sunny? Was it rainy like today? Wind speed, wind direction, tide, moon phase, current, water temperature, wind speed, everything. And then we deliver the bite time, which is the fishing forecast. Then there's a social layer. Anglers love to engage with each other. So there's a lot of discussions between anglers on the platform. We have more utility features like depth contours, we have exact fishing spots, we have points of interest, and we also have a lot of gear data, because when users log their catches, they tag it that quote is using this reel, this rod, this line, this lure. So we aggregate an enormous amount of sport fishing data than we use for gear recommendations. And now recently we also launched a commerce opportunity marketplace on top of that. Will I get to in a bit. Next slide, please. And this is what makes me super excited about Fishbrain, because we really sit at the intersection of three markets that are massive in themselves. There's the social side, where of course you have the general platforms, the Facebook, the Instagrams of the world. And there are now utility apps worth quite a bit north of $1 billion. You have a Strava that's doing it for cycling. You have in Headspace, our neighbor over here, Spotify right across the street from Fishbrain, done a fantastic utility service delivering music. House is valued at $4 or $5 billion. They built a community for home remodeling, decoration with utility features and a marketplace. And on the marketplace, you have companies like Wayfair, Amazon, Etsy, Farfetched, and a lot of other companies building hugely, enormously valuable marketplaces. And we are right in the middle, and we are delivering on all three of them. So the opportunity is really big. Next one. And speaking about the market, I told you this is the world's largest hobby. Here are some numbers. In the US alone, there's 50 million Americans that fish every year. And the market is a $50 billion market, which is, put the number in perspective, the global music industry is a $20 billion industry, which is roughly the market cap of Spotify. So it's huge, and this is in the US only. And it's also quite frequent. Anglers fish on average 20 times per year. So this is a quite frequent hobby. And there's a lot of engagement. It's also big in Europe, it's big in Russia, it's big in China, Australia, in South America. So it's a very, very global hobby as well. Next slide, please. And this is also a macro trend that it's definitely in our favor, because if you look at sport fishing 20, 30 years ago, it was very male dominated and skewed slightly towards the older people. Today, it's totally different. There's huge growth in women and younger people. When I was a kid, it was absolutely not cool to say that you were, I would say, outdoors in general and definitely not fishing. And brands like Fjällräven, that wasn't a cool brand. Today, it's completely different. Kids, they talk about their outdoor adventures. Fjällräven is, again, a very, very hip brand. And of course, that's really good for us because they are avid users of apps, social media, etc., etc. Next slide, please. We talked about data a little bit, but Fishbrain is an enormous data gathering machine. And I think this is important because there are so many things we can do with that data. Today we get the catch information, the weather, the water, we get user behavior, we get the gear data, we get the social graph, the fishing graph, and we use it for the bite time, which is the fishing forecast. We work now very, very closely with researchers and agencies and states around the sustainable fishing. So we work with US Fish and Wildlife Service for around endangered species in Florida. We work with Florida Wildlife Commission around invasive species. So there's a lot we contribute from an ESG perspective here, which I'm nothing I thought about, frankly, when I started Fishbrain 7 years ago. But I'm super proud today that we actively contribute to a sustainable fishing. And now we're working more, I'll come to the commerce side in a bit, and also how we work with the brands in the industry. Next slide, please. And when we start there, when you build a vertical social network, the market dynamics is really, really brutal because there would be only one winner. So the first 3 years, even though I started the company here in Stockholm, we decided to go after the US market, the biggest market first. So we didn't even launch in Sweden first. So we went after the US market. And then we didn't monetize for the first 3-4 years because we knew we needed to be the first one to hit the tipping point, a critical mass of users. Because we were not the first, like Spotify wasn't the first music service. We were not the first fishing app. So it took about 3-4 years. Then we saw that we are now accelerating away from competitors. We were the ones hitting the tipping point first. And you can see now that we grow 10 times as fast. We're 10 times as big, and we grow even faster than 10 times as fast as our competitors. And all 3 of them wanted us to acquire them, but we haven't seen a reason because our growth is good without M&A in this, and when it comes to direct competitors. Next one, please. And Fishbrain is not a one-man band, and so it's me, but I have a very strong management team that's helped me execute on this opportunity. We have Azar with a background from 10-something years at Kinnevik, so Metro, and Rickard, he was leading their tech side through their IPO, so he has IPO experience and been at Spotify for quite some time. So I have a very strong management. I can mention Lisa Kennelly because the company is based here. We target the US the US market. Swedes in general suck at marketing. I personally suck at marketing. So of course we need an American to run marketing, and Lisa is really brilliant when it comes to marketing. So we have I think 100 people in the company and at least 15 Americans in the company, which is important because that's our core demographics. Next one, please. And coming over a little bit to the financials, how we make money. And today we run Fishbrain. We have 2 revenue streams. We started with the subscription, and we run with a freemium model, so it's free to download and start using Fishbrain. But if you want to have access to some features, they are behind the paywall. So that's one revenue stream. A second that we launched in end of 2019, it's Marketplace. So users can now buy fishing gear directly on our platform, and I'll get to that in a bit. Next slide, please. Next. So here, starting with the freemium model. So it's some features we put behind the paywall. Basically, everything social is free. Logging your catches, all the social engagement, that's free today. But if you want to have access to the crowdsourced data, the positions, the bait recommendations, the fishing forecast, etc., that's behind the paywall. And it's priced at $10 per month, and you get a discount if you sign up for a quarterly or an annual plan. And out of an user base of 1.2 million monthly active users, we have 130,000 paying subscribers. And if you look at freemium models in general, that is very strong conversions because most freemium models, they operate around 3-4% conversion from a free but active user into paying subscriber. So we have strong conversion. So for us, it's more how do we continue to scale and grow the top line. Next one, please. And here, looking at 2020, we grew business around 50% in subscription revenue in 2020. And you can see on the subscriber base is we are heavily focused on the US market. We have 88% of our subscribers are in the US. So, and we still have ways to go in the States, because I told you that it's a 50 million Americans fish every year. And we have maybe 5 million of them registered on the platform, 1 million active. So there's huge room for us to continue to grow on the US market. But of course, my vision for this company is to be the global winner in the sport fishing space. But we have solid growth, 50% plus in the North American market right now. But we will start with global expansion soon. Next slide, please. And something also we did in, not only did we have good growth in 2020, this is also something that we significantly improved, because the first time in the company, it was basically all about growth, less about profitability, which means that we have maneuvered that LTV, lifetime value over CAC, has been trailing around 1.0, meaning that if we spend $1 on marketing, we made sure that we recovered that through the subscription, but no additional contribution. But last year, we started with focusing a bit more on our profitability, and we actually put some free features and put them behind the paywall. And we went from LTV over CAC trailing around 1.0 to 2.8. So it was a huge improvement in 2020 on our, we are not yet profitable, but our path to profitability. So now we have strong unit economics. So we want to continue now to scale the top line. Next slide, please. Next. And this is absolutely not rocket science, because if we have those gear data, we have more gear data than Amazon, more rating and reviews, catches with the equipment tag. It's a pretty good commerce opportunity. And also when you look at fishing in general, it's an industry that's trailing behind a lot of other industries, but growth on e-commerce now, it's only 15% today in e-commerce, but it's growing now very, very rapidly. And if you ask me, there's no, you can see that furniture and home furnishing is roughly twice as big online as fishing equipment percentage-wise. And if you ask me, it's much easier to buy your reel, your rod, your line online than your next bed or sofa. So just that this is a very sport fishing market, it's traditional, very old school. You have two dominant brick and mortar retailers, Bass Pro and Cabela's, but the growth is really online, and we are rightly positioned to take advantage of that. Next one, please. So we built a marketplace, and now we have over 70 sellers on the marketplace already. We have over 80,000 SKUs products on the market, and we've done this in 1 year. So there's a shop on the web, there's a shop on the app with all these brands. We're working on social shopping, we're working on personalization. It's still very early days for us here, but we're off to a great start when it comes to the marketplace. Next one, please. I think we can skip this in essence of time. Next one. And so here are some of the performance. So in end of 2019, and here are 2020 numbers. We get more orders. We increase AOV, average order value, and GMV, the sales on the platform, is starting to pick up pretty nicely on the platform. Next one, please. Next. And ending here, so last year we grew 43% in total on the subscription side. Growth is looking very, very strong for us in 2020. And basically that's the plan going forward, to continue to scale the subscription revenue between 50 and 100% per year. And we will start with globalization, expanding outside the US market. And then we will grow. The marketplace is recent for us, but this is now time for us to scale. There's a huge interest from the brands, the industry, to be on the platform, which is absolutely not a given when you start. But now we have 5 of the 10 leading brands are on the platform. We have a partnership with Pure Fishing. That's the world's largest fishing tackle manufacturer with 10% global market share. Last week, we inked a deal with Garmin, the leading manufacturer of marine electronics. So there's a big interest there. So we definitely want to continue to scale that part, scale the subscription business, which we've done now for 3-4 years. We did $9.6 million in subscription revenue last year. So continue to scale that. And one thing I should mention is we have fantastic gross margin, and we are not like a Readly or a Storytel or a Spotify, because what we put behind the paywall is access to crowdsourced data. So that basically means that the cost for our content is zero. We are on the app stores though, so we have to send 30% to Apple, to Tim Cook at Apple and to Google, but that's okay when we have no other costs. It's basically 70% gross margin on the subscription side. On the marketplace side, we take the transaction, which is very, very important. We own the customer experience. This is not an affiliate model where we send this off to a retailer. They transact on Fishbrain, which means that we do have their credit card information. But we take 15% commission on all transactions that are generated on our platform. So it will take a bit for a GMV. It will grow fast, but the revenue is 15% of GMV here. But very, very strong gross margin. So next one. I will end here. So we've historically, we started this end of 2020 and got some really good angels on board first, and then Northzone and Industrifonden invested. Then we got some good investors, VCs into our Series B. SoftBank, very happy to have SoftBank. They've been a strong supporter of the company. Another interesting one is B Capital, because one of the main LPs in that fund is Facebook co-founder Eduardo Severin. And he's a huge believer in the unbundling of social. So he's been very, very highly engaged in Fishbrain. It's been tremendously helpful for us as a business. And which is not on this slide, but right a couple of weeks ago or a month ago or so, we closed our pre-IPO round. It was $31 million, led by ABG here. So that was our pre-IPO round. So now we are scaling up. We were 75 people before. Now we are scaling up the team and start to execute. Because when I said we are going after 3 massive markets, it's hard to do with 75 people. So now we are scaling up the organization so we can better execute on all 3 of them. I will end there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Johan. Very interesting presentation. We have time for a few questions here. First of all, as you said, you have launched a marketplace. And if you zoom out a few years forward, where do you see this largest potential revenue-wise? Is that in the subscription part of the business model, or is in the marketplace? And adding to that, in the marketplace, if I understand this right, you are not selling ads on the platform, but can you split that and give some thinkings about the 2 sources of revenues?
It's a very good question, and we look at if I extrapolate now for 3 years forward, I think the subscription revenue side and the marketplace revenue will be equal in size. From a GMV perspective, marketplace will overtake subscription faster than that, of course, because it's 50% commission. But we believe in 3 years they will be equally big revenue streams. And I always get the question, will do these 2 revenue streams cannibalize? Why don't you give the subscription away, everything away for free? Then you will have more users, more engaged user base. I don't think they cannibalize that much because, again, if people that are anglers in the audience, you know how much money you spend on fishing? There's a reason this is the world's largest hobby. And I think people would be happy to pay $10 per month for something that they are passionate about. So I don't think the subscription will actually cannibalize that much on the marketplace. So I'm a huge fan of actually having both revenue streams. And to answer your second question, no, we don't do ads on the platform. We with one exception, because one of the large leading insurance companies in the US, Progressive, they gave us such a great deal, such a good CPM. So we tried it out in 2020, and it had no negative consequences to the engagement or the retention and stuff like that. So I'm not ruling out that we will launch ads as a revenue stream, but we currently don't have that in our financial projections.
Okay, thank you, Johan. And looking, as you said, you have taken the leadership position in this segment, fishing, and you have a lot of opportunities. But where do you see the largest challenges to achieve your goals? Is it finding the right staff, or what? Can you help us a bit there?
I think when being a company with 100 people, it's hard to be good in 2 revenue streams. So I think your question was really good. So I think one challenge for us is how do we make a great utility and a great marketplace at the same time? How do you design a customer experience where you can actually have both the social side, the utility, and the marketplace? But I think what we built now looks promising, and others have done it, like a house, for example. So it's definitely has been done. Then one thing that we haven't really started on yet is, which I mentioned, is geographical expansion. At some point, we are far away from that, but at some point we will saturate the US market. And if you look at, I mentioned Strava, which was this app for cycling, which is, I think, Sequoia and TCV just invested $150 million, $1 billion plus valuation. They did geographical expansion much earlier than we've done. And as you know, when I say there are a strong network effects, these network effects are local. So it doesn't, just because we won the US market, doesn't automatically make us the winner in like a China or a Japan or Brazil or Russia or France or Germany. So I think that is something we need to invest in, geographical expansion, and also finding local talent that can actually drive this geographical expansion for us.
Thank you, Johan. The time is running out, and I had one last question, but I think we don't have that. But we call this a pre-IPO seminar, so we're looking forward to your IPO in the future. So thank you much, Johan.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to ABG Sundal Collier's pre-IPO seminar. My name is Olof Cederholm. I'm leading the industrial team at ABG Research in Stockholm. With me today, I have Anders Bergtoft with ChartChamps, and we're very excited to hear about your plans going forward, Anders. With that, I'll leave the word to you.
Thank you. You can go directly to the next slide, I think. So, my name is Anders Bergtoft, and I'm the CEO of ChartChamps. We just did a pre-IPO investment here like 2.5 months ago, and we raised 130 million SEK from Swedbank Robur, the equity funds Microcap and Ny Teknik. They also invested an additional 20 million SEK and acquired some shares from our existing shareholders. So that was very interesting for us. That makes it possible for us to basically do 3 things: to invest and further expand into our expanding ChartChamps in Europe, and we are now setting up our businesses in a number of different markets across Europe. So the Nordics, of course, UK, Germany, France, Spain, Benelux, etc. The second thing is, of course, to invest also in further R&D development. And we do that, of course, because there are different requirements in different markets as such. The third thing is then, of course, to prepare for the IPO that we have planned to take place in Q1 next year to make us ready and prepared for that IPO. If you go to the next slide, please. So what we do basically is that we develop smart and customized user-friendly charging solutions, and our products are sort of premium designed, and we target both B2C and B2B customers. Our business as such is quite asset light. It's a very scalable business model, and we focus mainly on hardware, and also we have future upsides now in software and services. We have an international expansion already ongoing. We have sold into 15 countries, and basically we have sold 55,000 charging points at this day. Basically grows by 10% every month, you could say. Our forecast and plan for this year is to end up 250 million SEK in revenue, and our gross margin is basically 44%. Our 2 main revenue drivers is the charging stations, ChartChamps Halo and ChartChamps Aura. I will come back to them later on. And then, of course, we have a cloud-based platform that's where you control the charging stations from, or you can also use the app as such. If you look at our presence, as I said, we've been mainly now in Europe. We have also sold into Australia as one example, but we intend to grow this our market presence. So we don't sell direct, we sell through distributors, and the distributors, they sell to partners and retailers. In our way, it sort of scales so much better, but I will come back to that later on as well. If you go to the next slide, please. So if you look at our milestones, basically we started in 2012. Fredrik Jonsson, who is the founder of ChartChamps, he started out with making charging cables, and during the years we have launched a number of different cables and also charging stations, of course. We have also introduced new products, entered new markets, and if you look at the revenue take-up, you can see that last year we basically sold 104 million SEK, and we grew our business with 142% from 2019. So strong growth we have done during the last couple of years. I will come back also to the latest figures to give you some flavor of that. So next slide, please. If you look at our business, basically sustainability is part of our company DNA. All our products, of course, they contribute to the shift to fossil-free mobility. all our products are basically made out of durable, locally recycled aluminum, and also all the charging stations, they are designed and made in Sweden. And to the right, you can see the different sustainable development goals that we are, you could say, supporting with our business and our way of doing business as well. If you go to the next slide, please. So this market, it's a hot market, you could say. There is strong growth. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, that many European countries, they have committed to phasing out sales of internal combustion engines. So that's diesel or petrol, of course, and pave the way for EV charging. And regardless of what country, I mean, Norway, they have decided that should happen already in 2025. And if you look here in Sweden, it's 2030, and you can go to, let's say, France or Spain, then it's 2040. I think it will actually go faster, simply because all the car manufacturers, they are already now launching new cars, and they are also dropping, for instance, Audi have said that they are dropping their research into internal combustion engines. So I think regardless if you as a country have said 2040 or 2025, I think it will go much faster than 2040. One other thing is also, of course, in each of the markets and regions, then there are subsidies that are super important. So if you look in Sweden, there is a grön teknikavdrag, similar to a Swedish RUT and ROT-avdrag. So you get basically 50% off on the installation and also the hardware. If you go to Germany, then there is 900 euro that you get back. So that is also a very interesting and important factor for driving the business here in Europe. If you go to the next slide, please. If you look at the market here in the Nordics, it's been really strong adaptation of EV cars. So Norway, of course, is ahead. If you look at the December figures, 87% of all the cars sold in Norway, those were cars that either were pure EV cars or hybrid cars. In Sweden, the same figure was 50%. I saw now in April, I think it was 43 or 46% in Sweden, so it's roughly the same. If you look at the other parts of Europe, it's a little bit less, but of course the volumes are so much higher if you go to Germany or the UK or some other market. So this strong growth is super important. And even though this growth will continue for many years, if you look on the right there is a graph, and by 2025, it's still going to be very few cars that will actually be electric cars if you look compared to the total. It should say 5.2%, but it seems like it has disappeared on this slide here. There are other things, of course, that are also important that drives these market drivers. It can be the Paris Agreement. It can be the 90% reduction of greenhouse gases, etc. So many things are supporting this quick adoption. Next slide, please. Also, of course, there are a lot of things happening in the market right now. Many car manufacturers, they are investing a lot of money into EV cars, changing the whole industry. Everyone is doing that. Before it was only Tesla, but now you can see all the car manufacturers are doing the same thing. Cheaper batteries is also something that is super important. That's a key driver for, of course, creating some price parity between an EV car and an ICE car, and that will also come fairly soon. So batteries coming cheaper means that the EV cars become more affordable. One thing that is important, of course, is the demand for chargers, basically. And that is very strong in Europe and in many other places. And basically, we say that more than 80% of all the charging that will take place at home or in the office, that's where the charging will be the cheapest, so to say. And that's where we make our chargers for. We don't make the fast chargers that you have along the highways. It's a much smaller market, and that's not where we play. So we play in the AC market, where you have charging at home, at offices, parking garages, etc. Next slide, please. If you look at our business, basically it's the hardware that drives the rapid growth. So both selling charging stations and cables and load balancing functionality. But then, of course, it's the software and the services that also make an interesting future possibility for us for creating recurring revenue streams. That is something that we're aiming for, but it is the hardware really that drives the growth as it is right now. Next slide, please. If you look at our products, they are sort of premium products, and they are designed, beautifully designed by Joakim Nordvall, our lead designer. He has previously worked with Koenigsegg designing their cars. So if you look at the products as such, they're all sort of made out of recycled aluminum. We have very high IP ratings. You could say they're made for the Nordic climate, but also our cables, they are often also special simply because even though it's cold here in Sweden, they need to work even though it's in the middle of the winter, so to say, without being very stiff or very hard. All R&D and production are also made here in Sweden. We try to make really user-friendly, beautiful products that also sort of cater for safe and secure charging. If you go to the next slide, please. If you look at our products, they are tailored both for B2B and B2C customers. We have a leading TCO with our products. Since they are also made out of aluminum, they will last you roughly 15 years without any problem. Our two hero products are the Charge Amps Halo and the Charge Amps Aura. The Halo is our number one seller. It comes in 3 different versions. 3.7, 7.5 and 11 kilowatts. It has a fixed cable, which is really nice. So it's very easy to charge your car. You don't need to take out your cable and connect it every time, as one example. It also has Wi-Fi, RFID, Ethernet LAN connection. We also have a Shuko connection underneath, so that you can connect either, let's say, an e-bike or your vacuum cleaner when you're cleaning your car. And that version is also available in an OEM version. For instance, we have done that together with Vattenfall. I will come back to that. The Charge Amps Aura, it's a top line really product. It can actually charge 2 cars at the same time, 2 times 22 kilowatts. It has also load balancing between the different sockets, but of course it can also have load balancing between many other charging stations. It also has Wi-Fi, RFID, 4G, Ethernet, LAN, etc. It's also ready for vehicle to grid. We also have a third model in our range that will come out later. It will be launched, you could say, later this year, and revenue will come from that one starting in Q1 2022. It will be a game-changing product that we are really looking forward to launching. And then we have load balancing functionality from our AmpGuard product, and then we have a number of really unique charging cables as well. Thank you. Next slide. If we look at our cloud platform, then basically you could say it has 4 administrative layers. So depending if you're an end user or if you are a administrator in a bostadsrättsförening or housing community or so, or if you are the installer or our own supporting organizations, you can have access and see different things of the installation, and you can manage and control both the data and also the charging and all the information that you have there. We also have over-the-air updates with new software out to the different charging stations, and the whole cloud platform is also available in the white label version as well. And in the platform, of course, you can handle both billing, you can monitor the charging, you can create automatic reports, etc. You can also connect our platform to different payment solutions so that you can pay with credit cards, EasyPark, Swish, or whatever. And you also have some other enterprise integrations in the pipeline. On the bottom there, we have the load balancing, and that's super important. We have the highest level of dynamic load balancing, so you can easily share the available electricity that you have without the fuses popping, so to say, and you can do that across the total installation that you have and all the cars that you have there as well. So that is an important function as well. If you go to the next slide, please. We don't sell direct, as I said there in the beginning. I think that's a very important thing. We try to piggyback on the existing distribution channel that is out there. So we sell through different distributors. So if you look at Sweden as one example, these products they need to be installed by an electrician. So the electrical wholesalers, that's the biggest segment that we are targeting. So we basically have a distribution agreement with all the large electrical wholesalers. So all the electricians can come to Ahlsell, Elektroskandia, Elkedjan, Rexel, and so on to get their products before they start installing. If you want to buy a new car, then of course you might go to Volvo or some other place. Then we have a distributor called KGK, and they of course sell into all the car dealer segments. We have for the retail channel, of course, we have for solar panels, and we have the charge point operators. I think you might have listened to our one of our customers, Eways, earlier today, and they of course they buy through our different electrical wholesalers. And then of course we sell a little actually direct to things like Vattenfall, but that's more an OEM business as such. If you go to the next slide, so our production, as I said, everything is based here in Sweden, and we have outsourced our production to 2 different contract manufacturers. One is called Note, the other one is called Orbit One. Note basically does most of our products, and they are produced in Norrtälje and in Torsby in Värmland, and Orbit One, then it's in Huddinge. And with Note, we can easily expand into new markets if we would like to make our products also outside of Sweden. So Note, they have production facilities in China, in UK, in the Baltics, in Finland as one example. So there is no really limits in our production capacity as such. So we really try to piggyback on the contract manufacturers to be able to scale as quickly as possible. If we go to the next slide, then the money that we have taken in previously, those are, as I said, will be used for basically 3 things. One is the international expansion, and we are now starting up both subsidiaries, hiring people, signing up distributors, etc., across some selected markets in Europe. And also the portfolio development. There we are spending money also on our new products and also enhancing the existing ones that we have. And then for operational excellence, we have already now done the first IPO readiness study with PwC. So we are just now kickstarting the project for becoming ready for being IPO ready, you could say. And we have decided that should happen in Q1 next year. Then we have the full year result, and we have also proven that we delivered 250 million SEK. If you go to the next slide, then here is sort of where we are. It's some old figures here as well, actually. But if you look on the right-hand side, it says 104 million SEK. That's what we sold in 2020. In Q1, we actually sold 50 million. And that was basically what we sold. It took us 3 months this year to sell 50 million. But last year, it took us 9 months to sell the same figure. So I'm betting that by the end of June here, I think we will have sold as much as we sold for the full year last year. And 250, that's the target for this year. And I feel comfortable that we are tracking in the right direction. So strong momentum. And also now we have signed up a number of distributors in Germany, and we see that we have good traction. They like our quality and they like our products in a good way. Next slide, please. Yeah, and I think the thing here is basically in the bottom, of course, that as our sales increase, of course, then the gross margin will improve somewhat, and the OpEx over sales will also come down as well. You could say that we have been profitable since October last year until we actually took in the money. This year is going to be a year of investment, but we have a very good margin as well if you compare to other competitors that are actually listed on the stock market today. Then I think we have the last slide there. Yes, so what we're looking into now is also how to see how we can increase our revenues from different type of value-added services. So we basically said that we will try to get 5% of our revenue from these type of services this year. So that will come from service and support, different type of SLA agreements, could be managed services opportunities, payment solutions, of course, and extended warranty, and then also from some transactional fees and other things. But that is something that we are looking at right now, how we should do that in the best possible way. I think I stop there, and my 20 minutes are out. And I want you, of course, to keep Charge Amps on your radar screen for next year's IPO. And here are some 5 different statements that I think make sense why you should think about Charge Amps and possibly invest in Charge Amps as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. Very interesting. I have a couple of questions. We have a couple of minutes. So looking at the geographical expansion, is there a difference in terms of the competitive dynamics of these markets, or can you sort of use one blueprint to enter all of them, or do you have to adjust?
We have to adjust a little bit. I think if you look at the distribution, then let's take in Sweden they're called Elektroskandia. They're part of the Sonepar group. And Sonepar, as well as Rexel, they are in all markets, but they basically drive each market on their own. So it's not that you can have a pan-European agreement. So you need to sign up those agreements in each market. So that's sort of, it's just the footwork that needs to be done there. If you look at the market requirements, there are differences between, for instance, Germany and Holland and Sweden. So we need to do some tweaks also to our products to be able to sell them to all segments in these markets. But I think Germany seems to love our products. So what we do basically is that we send our products to our distributors, and then when they open the box and they see the product, then they are, they really like them because they see that it's really high quality. And that has proven the way to go to market for us in Germany, at least. Now, but when it's COVID, it's kind of hard to travel. But we also have some local guys now on the ground there. So you need to adapt to each market. So that's basically it. But the socket is there, the product is there. It can be software tweaks and new functionality that you need to add, or something that needs to be connected to the cloud platform to be able to handle different local charging or payment solutions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and when you go to these new markets, I assume there are incumbents there that have already also started to move and maybe grab some market share. What is the key driver, do you think, for your product to take on and win in the marketplace in the new markets?
So I think, the Nordics, we are ahead of sort of EV charging take-up, you could say. So in that sense, we are a little bit ahead. But of course, the markets in Europe is so much bigger than in Sweden or Norway. And there are many competitors in each local market as well. But many of them, they don't look so nice. They are made out of plastic. So there are many smaller competitors. There are not so many large ones that are really dominant or so. So I think it's up for grabs. If we look at our other Nordic competitors, they are basically doing the same thing as us, trying to get out there and get some market share. I think what we see is that we are growing faster than the others, and we see that the customers love our products. So I'm comfortable with going into these new markets. And then, of course, at some time you can also go outside of Europe, but now our focus is here in Europe, and the market will be very big. I mean, if you compare Sweden to Germany, for instance, I mean, I think April was like 9,500 cars sold in Sweden that had a possibility to be charged. If you go to Germany, it was 50,000. So it is a big difference there. But of course we will meet local competition. But it's like I come from the telecom industry, and if you compare Nokia, Sony Ericsson, Apple, Samsung, etc., there might be, before it was a lot of different players, but you have some kind of consolidation, and then in the end you will have a few players there, and then of course design and functionality, that is super important. If you have a nice house that you have paid lots of money for and you're proud of and you like to live in, then of course you should have a nice charging station on the wall there, and not only just a black one in plastic.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anders. In the interest of time, we will have to end here, but thank you so much for taking part of this. It was very interesting, and we're really looking forward to following Charge Amps going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao. Bye.
The next company to present is iCoat Medical, and I am pleased to introduce CEO Peder Van and Head of Strategy David Berglund. Before I hand over the word to Peder and David, I can confirm as a point of information that iCoat will be carrying out a pre-IPO private placement. Over to you, Peder.
Thank you very much, Adam. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Peter. I am CEO and one of the co-founders of iCoat, and I have with me my colleague David Berglund, our head of strategy. If we move forward, please, 2 slides, I believe. Good. So I am one of the few ones in our firm who's not an MD or a PhD or a professor within immunology. Instead, I have a general background in business development, strategy consulting, as well as building an industrial compounder known as Diptych. But I can truly say that nothing has been more exciting than the journey we're doing with iCoat. So I'm very pleased to be here today and present it together with David. I'm going to walk you through 3 main areas today. First, I would like to give a brief introduction to our company, then demonstrate the medical need we are addressing, as well as the preclinical package upon we are building iCoat, and finally what lies ahead. Like Adam from ABG said, we are currently conducting a pre-IPO process together with ABG, and our aim is to raise money now before heading towards an IPO on First North in Stockholm, Sweden within 18 months. So if we move forward to the next slide, please. Now, iCoat Medical as a company is a fairly young one, but it is built around and upon a very, very strong preclinical background that is the result of decades of research and product development that we have conducted in very close collaboration with 5 academic institutions in Sweden and Japan. The rest of our founders, they are, I dare to say, one of Sweden's leading teams in immunology, and together with the rest of our colleagues, we comprise a highly qualified R&D team who specializes in different parts of preclinical and clinical studies. Now, what we do as an organization is that we are building iCoat towards commercialization of our products that will target the large and non-cyclical organ transplant market. And this is something we do based upon our IP-protected platform technology centered around our research, upon which multiple product candidates are emerging, all of which will have a so-called orphan drug designation. Our lead indication and lead product is called TUM12, which will enter its first in-human study later this fall for kidneys. But in parallel, we will continue our preclinical research in collaboration with the universities from where we come from. This gives us access to world-class research, great colleagues, and effectively keep our operating spends at a very low level. So iCoat is an effective and cost-conscious firm that is working towards clinical trial and subsequent commercialization. We expect that in 2025, our first product and its first indication will be ready for commercial launch, upon which our prognosis indicate around 200 to 220,000 transplantations taking place around the world. Now, our first indication is for kidneys, but our ambition is to also move forward with heart and liver, and effectively we will then cover the absolute majority, more than 90% of these transplantations. This product thereby effectively have a market potential that has been estimated to around $4 billion. And as of now, there are no direct competitors to our product TUM12. If we move to the next section. Our team constitutes the 5 founders who have been working for more than 20 years together now, and myself, and those are Professor Bo Nilsson, Professor Alireza Biglarnia, Professor Marianne Jensen-Wern, Professor Joji Teramura, and Professor Kristina Nilsson. Together with David, we're also joined in our management team by Christer Sävholm, our head of toxicology. Christer has previously held similar position in various industrial and large pharma firms, including AstraZeneca. And finally, we're also joined by Inga Dahlfeldt, our director for clinical trials. Inga has been successfully planning, leading, and executing similar trials to the one we are about to commence for the past 30 years. So taken together, we are a management team with different commercial and industrial and academic backgrounds. That all taken together comprises a complete team, so to speak. If you go to the next page, please. And this is something that stands out, our statement that iCoat has a complete team. Most early stage pharma companies, they comprise a group who come from the same research background. We do not. We have different specialities, meaning that iCoat Medical as a company covers the complete research chain from biochemistry and basic and applied immunology through translational and preclinical work into clinical medicine and subsequent commercialization. So while being a small firm, we have no operational gaps, but rather we are fully set for the trial, which will commence in Q4 this year. We go to the next one, please. We're also very proud of the board of directors and our key opinion leaders who govern and support our development. The board is led by Hans Larsson, former chairman of the board for Svenska Handelsbanken, as well as one of Sweden's premier industrialists. We also have Bertil Villard, one of the founding members of Inga and former head of corporate finance at Alfred Berg on the board. Bo Nilsson and Marianne Jensen represents the core of our work, whereas the fifth member is Martin Åmark, who on a daily basis works as the CEO of Xbrain Biopharma. Are on the other spectrum of innovation when it comes to pharma products. They are building generic products, but they have been very successful in the various finance and partnership developments across the world. Also, we have 3 key opinion leaders that represent iCoat, one in each of our 3 main markets. Professor Steven Sachs in Europe, Professor Raya Kanaswamy in the United States, and Professor Katsunari Tanabe in Japan. So that is a short intro about iCoat. If we go to the next page. So what we do is that we address the great medical need that is the worldwide shortage of organs suitable for transplantations. It's not only just a shortage, but the waiting lists and people who have to be in dialysis as a fact of it, they continue to grow every year. Just to exemplify, less than 10% of the global need of organs for transplantation is being covered, and each year kidney disease kills more people than breast or prostate cancer. So this is a very big problem. Now, main reason to this deficit of organs is that during the transport from a donor to a recipient, any organ experiences a lack of oxygen during the transport called ischemia. Because of this, when the transplantation is conducted, a so-called ischemia-reperfusion injury occurs. That injury damages the organ and subsequently activates the recipient body's immune system. This ischemia-reperfusion injury is the center for our research and the area which we build our products upon. And what we aim to do is to significantly decrease the associated levels of organ damage that comes from this ischemia-reperfusion injury through our product TUM12. This will lead to not only an increased life length of the organ being transplanted, but it will also extend the pool of organs that are available for transplantations. So taken together, these 2 factors will help reduce the waiting list for transplants all over the world, something that is greatly needed. If we go to the next one, please. So here I just want to give you a brief intro to this research area that we focus on and what it implies. Our focus is ischemia-reperfusion injury. That is a so-called pathophysiological mechanism which leads to a thromboinflammation and tissue injuries that occurs in many areas, not just transplantation. And to simplify it a bit, ischemia-reperfusion injury can be described as a 2-step process. First, a lack of oxygen leads to cell injuries and changes in the cell surface. For example, when a transplant is removed from the donor's body and transported. Thereafter, the recipient body, its immune system is activated because of this lack of oxygen, which leads to an attack of these altered cells that causes this so-called thromboinflammation. Now, thromboinflammation occurs not just in organs being transplanted, but in many of some of the most common causes of death in the world and the connected treatment of it, such as cardiac bypass, myocardial infarction, and stroke. So in theory, this is the very vast universe of indication for iCoat Medical, but we start out with solid organs for transplantation. And this is something we do through this product TUM12 that I will now cover a bit if we go to the next page. So the proof of concept and connected mode of action for TUM12, that is something we proved in 2012. And basically the underlying issue is this ischemia reperfusion injury, which always develops during a transplantation. It doesn't matter who the recipient is, what kind of organ being transplanted, or how well the procedure goes. The IR injury always happens. And what TUM12 does is that it is a so-called ex vivo treatment of an organ, meaning that it is treated outside of the body before the kidney, for example, is transplanted into the patient. And it acts as a coat, which forms a barrier and protects the endothelium and compensates for these damaged glycocalyx. So effectively, the mode of action has been confirmed, and it is confirmed through a significant protection against these kind of injuries. In the bottom, you see a very simplified illustration of this. To the left, you have a cell membrane that is attacked in a normal state. But in our case, when TUM12 is inserted, the product acts as a protecting coat, which creates an impermeable coating around it before it leaves the body through the urine. This is something we have demonstrated in numerous in vitro studies, as well as in 4 large in vivo studies on pigs. Pigs are very good to work on, and I will explain why, but first I'm just going to demonstrate how the product looks in more detail. So next one. TUM12 in essence comprises 2 main parts. It is a PEG and it is a so-called phospholipid. And what it does is that TUM12 interacts with the phospholipid of the cell membrane, shown here as the what you see on the left side, part of a cell, and acts as this kind of shield. To the right, you see a microscopic picture of a cell that has been treated with the TUM12 and also a fluorescent fits to demonstrate this kind of coat. Very, very strong protection. If we go to the next one. The preclinical work we have done has been largely centered around studies on pigs, and they are very suitable for large animal models for kidney transplantations in particular. And this is because the pig's kidney is very similar to the human organ with respect to both anatomy and physiology. And in our case, the transplantations we have conducted, they have also been performed in the same manner as are done in the clinical setting for human patients. So what we have seen is that TUM12 demonstrate very strong efficacy data, that it shows an improved kidney function and reduced inflammation rates. So if we go to the next one. This is a very simplified but effective way to show how we've built our studies. And basically, donor donates both its kidneys to 2 piglets, that is pig siblings. One of the kidneys is being treated with TUM12 and the other one with a control product, effectively excluding all external factors and just demonstrating the results of TUM12. Next page. And the results are truly very astonishing and very promising that it will translate well into humans. This is a bit complicated one, but what you see on the left side of this page is creatinine levels measured in the control group and the group treated with TUM12. And here we see a statistically proven improved organ function for those kidneys that have been treated with TUM12. We also in the middle see a lower reaction and activation level of the innate immune system, showing also, which is also demonstrated to the right, where we have presented various forms of common biomarkers. These ones demonstrate different forms of systemic inflammation. All of them are almost non-existent in the case of TUM12. So this is very promising for kidney transplantation, but it is based upon our work on ischemia reperfusion injury as a general concept, and thus we see great potential for a full pipeline of indications. So if we take the next one. This is the pipeline we're building. It is centered around our patented work, and we are developing two product categories, TUM 12, which is for cold ischemia, and TUM 20, its successor for warm ischemia. Each of them come with three main indications, but we also see future preclinical projects emerging around our work. However, as we're working with ABE now, we are financing the first clinical trial, which will be for the indication of kidneys. So if we go to the next page, I want to show you where we are right now. And that is here in May, where we're raising about 40 to 45 million together with ABG. The book is filling up quite fast, but there's still room there. We will then file our application in early July after the final preparatory and administrative and financing aspects have been completed, before we commence the trial in early Q4 this year. In parallel, we are also progressing with future indications of TUM 12, as well as the second product group, TUM 20. This work is already started in April this year and is currently continuing with early positive outcome for warm ischemia as well. So taken together, there are very strong and significant value creation steps that will happen over the next 18 months before we expect to IPO in late 2022, which we will do with both safety and efficacy data to support our work. So if we go to the next page, please. I want to conclude this short intro by stating that iCoat Medical is something truly great in our opinion. We are developing novel treatments for organ transplantations and several other very large indications. There is a massive market we're heading towards in a couple of years, and there is no known direct competitor. We have all organizational aspects in place, and we are progressing according to plan and looking forward to the IPO in about 18 months. With that, I want to thank you, and me and David will answer any and all questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that presentation, Peter. A few questions. Firstly, I was wondering if you could elaborate on how the treatment is administered practically. You said it's an ex vivo treatment of the organ, but practically, how do you go about treating the organs, and how feasible is that method of administration in current workflows? Does it require any kind of changes to how the transplantations are carried out today, or does it kind of flow in easily?
You worked in the area before with this kind of product, David. Do you want to take it, or shall I?
Yeah, the practical aspects of administering this product is very straightforward. Whenever you procure an organ, regardless of whether it's a live or deceased donor, you always perfuse the organ with a crystalline type of solution. And this is simply an additive to that solution. It's compatible with whatever solution you use that is on the market. And on top of that, it is also compatible with what is called machine perfusion, which in turn can be done both hypothermically and normothermically. So the simple addition of this in the standard of care perfusion solution is what takes place.
Okay, great. And from a regulatory point of view, this is to be considered a drug as any other, despite being, given on or administered to an ex vivo organ, as it were.
Yes, the regulatory distinction between different product categories are very interesting, and this is a very, very broad and deep discussion. But this is something that we have looked into in great detail and have discussed with the Medical Products Agency in Sweden, and are comfortable with the pharmaceutical designation that we're going with.
Great. And looking ahead to the clinical trial, the first clinical trial that you're planning for at the end of this year, I was wondering if you could comment on your CMC situation. I mean, primarily the manufacturing side. Do you have enough product for the trial, and how's that being produced and so on?
Yes, we do. We are collaborating with a prominent GMP certified firm called Basic Pharma, based out of the Netherlands. They are currently preparing for the tech batch release, which will happen in early July. And we have been working closely with them for quite some time, and they have also been fully vetted in terms of capability and certifications, and they have passed it with flying colors. So there were some early delays in the past for us with Basic Pharma due to a global shortage of vials, as they all went to the COVID-19 vaccination development across the world. But as of now, and with the current presented timeline, everything is progressing according to plan.
Okay. And a question on the upcoming trial. What can you say in terms of the setup of that study, endpoints, size, and so on?
You want to take it, David?
Yeah, so this is, of course, a small initial trial whenever you do a first in human trial. I think the important part to focus on in this initial trial is that we're going to be able to collect a number of really important biomarkers in the trial. So when you have the ischemic event and subsequent reperfusion, perioperatively, you can collect blood samples just very similar to what you saw in these pig models, directly coming out of the transplanted organ. In essence, you take a sample from the renal vein in this case. And this can, with a very high precision, show to what extent we have been able to minimize the ischemia reperfusion events that happen. And that is something that we can accomplish in a small trial size with just around 10 patients, or a little over 10 patients is going to be possible to attain that. And that's then going to form what we believe a very effective base for an adaptive phase 2-3 design, which we believe will form the basis for registration on the market.
Okay, great. And a question on the TUM20. On a high level, how does that differ from TUM12? In terms of the kind of the mechanism of action and then the design of the molecules.
Yeah. So the ingenuity about this whole concept is really the effective coating that was outlined in the presentation, and this is really unique. If you want to try to accomplish the same type of effect by administering specific inhibitors, you would have to give something like 10, 15, 20 different antibodies and inhibitors of various pathways and cytokines, which in practice is absolutely impossible. So the basic inert coating that TUM12 provides is absolutely essential. On top of that, in certain ischemic situations, particularly with myocardial infarction and stroke, some of these pathways are going to be further augmented. So the TUM20 is a further addition of specific inhibitors for certain pathways. It could be, for instance, heparin, it can be specific complement inhibitors, and the one that we're driving forward right now is one that targets the coagulation cascade.
Okay, interesting. And obviously, for those indications, it wouldn't be the treatment of an ex vivo organ. It would be treating a live patient. Out of interest, what would that administration method look like? Is that likely to be an IV injection, or how do you envisage that?
Yes, so that's where the preclinical work is focused on optimizing the approach for maximizing the eventual clinical utility of those indications. The good thing is that there are a number of interventional procedures that are done routinely clinically today for a variety of ischemic events. So if you have a myocardial infarction, for instance, a blockage in a coronary artery, you can do an endovascular endoplasty and expand that blockage. That creates an ideal opportunity to also inject a treatment, for instance, TUM20. The same goes for a fraction of the stroke patients that do mechanical thrombectomy, and that also creates an ideal situation for administering. Now, the timing for giving this type of treatment systemically needs to be assessed more thoroughly before we know if that is a viable option or not in a more comprehensive situation where you don't need this type of targeted delivery. And the advantage is that the toxicological profile of this substance is absolutely pristine, which means that we can load a patient with very high doses without any side effects. We can't rule out that a systemic administration is relevant as well.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, our pleasure.
Have a great day. Thank you.
of the Coloreel Group and the innovator of the product technology for the product that we will present for you guys today.
And I'm Mattias Nordin. I'm the CEO of the company since 2017 with a long background in larger Swedish companies in similar roles.
Yes. So I founded this company in 2003. At that point of time, I was working with different type of development projects, helping multinational companies with more innovative technologies. I had a reason after a while to... Kör vi på engelska förresten? Everything in English. All right. To analyze the textile area. And one part in this analysis, what is good, what is bad in the textile area. One part is the extreme amount of thread reels. So this was especially clear in the embroidery area, because there you would like to have as many colors as possible. But in this case, even though you're a small or medium-sized embroiderer, you have thousands of thread reels, which is quite normal for such a size, then you just about never have the exact right colors of your embroideries. What is the reason for that? Because when you start your company or start a fraternity or a soccer club or whatever, you decide we want this, it should look like this, a dragon here, a sun there, water here, I have this blue, I want this green, I want this yellow color. And then after a while we want embroideries and you try to order that. The problem in the textile area, embroidery area today, is that a thread manufacturer only supply between 400 and 500 colors. But how many colors are there in the world that human eye can perceive? Millions. So what is the chances of any of the embroidery segments that you have will be the right colors from the selection of 400 to 500? Slim to none. So just about all colors on every segment in embroideries that you see out there in clubs, fraternities, small and medium-sized companies is completely wrong. This was a shock to me. And even worse is that when you have these big storages, you try to have as close as possible colors, which you don't succeed in anyways, but still you have to throw away a lot of thread. Today, for instance, in the fashion business, there's 8 seasons and you change colors a little bit back and forth. And colors becomes obsolete. One of our customers in Sweden, Sweden's largest embroidery company, they mentioned they throw away almost half of the threads that they buy, which is of course a big waste and not very good for our earth. So what we want to do is to remove all these huge storages of thread reels. And how can we do that? What you see here to the left is the first Coloreel product. And what we do with this product is that we color the thread instantly during textile production process. And in this case, for embroidery. So you have a white thread reel. To the left, you color the thread here. You dry the thread. You wash the thread. You do lubrication on the thread. And onto your product, hats or shoes or whatever you choose, you get exactly the right colors in each and every segment. And you can also do smooth transitions and any effect you can imagine, like bark effect or sunsets or grass or anything. And also our colored thread will also make this embroidery machine go much quicker. The quality of the thread is the same as a traditional thread today. The difference is that in today's factories, when you dye the thread, it takes between 5 and 8 hours to handle all the ISO standards. But we do this in a matter of seconds, which is one of the innovative heights in this. Our unit works with every embroidery machine on the market, and it's fully connectable in the digital world for solutions with barcode scanners and to make your production even smoother between different machines. Embroidery machines comes in different sizes. You see to the left below our Coloreel unit, you have a one-head embroidery machine. And here you hang the Coloreel unit on top of it. With this, you can do personalization. It's common in big stores, especially in the US and Asia, coming more to Europe as well. And there's also a lot of personalization online where you can buy hats, you decide which design you want, your name and so on. If you want to do parallel production, you buy a multi-head machine. In this case, you have 4 embroidery heads, which means that you can do 4 productions in parallel. And these units can, as mentioned, be hanged over any embroidery head, which means that you have between 7 and 8 million heads in the world that could have a Coloreel unit. Here is a bigger embroidery machine. It's a 12-head machine. In this case, they have 16 needles per head, which means that maximum 16 solid colors. When they are done with their 300 hats and they are going to the next order, which is 200 shirts, the worst thing that can happen is that the new order doesn't have any of the same colors that you have threaded already on your embroidery machine. So in the worst case, you have to rethread the machine with 192 thread reels before you can even start the production. And this takes a lot of time, a lot of waste of important time. With our technique, when you have Coloreel units above these heads, you have 0 setup times due to changing thread reels. You can do each and every production in a row. You can keep on going day and night if you like, which of course is a very big vad säger man?
Productivity loss.
Good stuff. Okay, and there's also a difference in quality of the embroideries with our technology and today's technology. We will show you a video here. Inga förlor. Hur kör man?
Tycker jag. Play.
Sorry about this, guys.
Yeah.
Or ljudet. Okay, so this video, du kan försöka fixa videos. This video shows a comparison with today's technology and our technology. So we have 2 embroidery machines. The one on the top have a color unit, which means that for every color in this embroidery, you only use 1 needle. And as you see today's machinery below, you need to stop and trim the thread and do some lock stitches before you can go on to the next color. And this takes a lot of time, and also the quality of the thread or the embroidery will become less good because you have all the lock stitches on top. So I will run this one a little bit here. So with Coloreel technology, it takes about 3.5 minutes. And with today's technology, it has only come to the first letter. But if we fast forward a little bit, this is finished about 12.5 minutes. This means quite a big difference in productivity. So almost 3.5 times as fast as today's technology with this embroidery. And here you can see the quality difference. Traditional thread, it's chopped up a little bit. And you have also the ugly thread sticking out from the backside. With our technology, you have one and the same thread going all the way over the embroidery, and even the backside looks as good as the front side. And here you can see a number of different embroideries. What we have done to the business of embroidery is to give you the freedom of design that you have in today's digital digital printing, but you have the high quality feeling that you have from an embroidery. So the Swedish flag will finally have exactly the right blue and the right yellow. Arla will have their gradient in their logo as they have never been able to have before. You can do the grass on your soccer team. You can do the 3D effect on the soccer ball with shadings in the sky. As you see here with the palm trees, we even have a tool where you can use a photograph as done in this case and you sample the exact colors from the sky in the photo, and you can reproduce it in an embroidery. Here is another short video where one of our customers tell you what they think about the Coloreel system.
My name is Martin. I'm the founder and CEO of Filkompaniet. Coloreel gives us new business opportunities because we can use logotypes and designs in a way that's never been possible before. We can make gradients, we can add effects like glow to a simple, otherwise quite boring, dull logotype design. And it gives us a competitive edge and a logistical advantage because we can always deliver any color, anytime, for anyone.
And this is pretty much the same for every one of our customers today. Quite happy. Yes.
Yes, let's continue with the environmental advantages, which is very good for the world and very much in the interest of our customers and the end customers. So we have three major advantages. The first one is the thread waste goes down to virtually nothing. And by the way, we can implement a full recycled polyester thread all the way out. Secondly, by our technology, we completely eliminate the wastewater produced in the coloring process. And thirdly, by using embroidery in the bottom here, you get very durable garments. That means a long life for the clothes itself. All of these are very good for the environment. And if everybody were in the world with an industrial embroidery machine would use our product, that would in every year would save 10 million kilos of polyester from waste, and 7 billion liters of polluted water would not be polluted. So that are some major advantages. And of course, the main fashion houses and customers are very, very happy and interested in that. Patents, very important. And one of the really strong points with this company is the very solid and strong patent portfolio. It's a very deep and wide protection of the product, and it's very long, so it lasts until almost 2040, which is exceedingly long for a product like this. Very important. And the market is large. The industrial embroidery machine market, every year, 750,000 new embroidery heads are sold, and an installed base of units that are used is 7 to 8 million. And with only our first product, and this is a number to remember, with only our first product, there is a target market for us for 100,000 units and a revenue of 15 billion Swedish crowns with very good margins. And with some fairly straightforward application and product expansion, this would more than double. Business model is simple and scalable. Revenue streams, we sell the unit at a good price with a good gross profit, and we sell consumables at an even better gross profit. And over time, about half of revenue would be consumables, about half would be units. And we do this through a scalable sales and distribution network. We have already a network of contracted distributors, which secures mainly capacity, or most importantly, capacity in service and installation, which is very difficult to build up. And of course, sold with all the customers they have. And to date, we have sold and delivered in 11 countries and 3 continents, and we cover a few more countries than that, where we're just ramping up. Then we have also a supply chain with very strong partners. Scanfil, a global contract manufacturer, and Ricoh, world's leading printer manufacturer, supplies one of the key modules with the inkjet system and cartridge system. And you can summarize the supply chain that we have already today capacity for very high volumes in place. Going over to some customer examples. This is what we can do for sports, which is one of the interesting segments. And here you see some sport brand applications. And you can notice that you get the premium feeling of embroidery combined with the design opportunities you would have from printing. And you can see the gradients, the grass effects, and so on. And adding to that, you have it's very easy to digitalize and to modify. So it's also quick to produce and quick to work with. And we have already today partnerships and deliveries made to the largest sport brand and the largest leisure brand. And we are in negotiations with their supply network for volume expansion.
On the side of these companies that we work with.
On the side of these companies that we work with, very, very much so. So this is, I can just say, we're covered by NDAs, but there are some very, very good names here. And we're getting close to the end, but so far the customers that have bought and are using the unit and our product are very happy and excited. And they're ranging from making business because of the short lead time to get the right color, the advanced design opportunities, or the sustainability effects. And I urge you to follow some of these links to see some very interesting companies here. And if you turn all of that into business and money, and now we're down to the last page. This gives us a business plan where we have a strong growth and with early profitability. And what you can see here, I would like to point out that even with a 2.4 billion revenue, we're still only having covered 0.83% of the installed base. So that's of course, and I think it's up to you to evaluate the profitability of this, but in my view, it's quite good. And we're seeing also the end of the COVID pandemic, so orders have now very recently start to come in after this, and we are as mentioned strongly ramping up. And with that, I think we conclude and open up for a couple of questions.
Thank you very much, Joakim and Matthias, for a thorough and good presentation. Seems like a really exciting product. And you touched upon this, but I assume a lot of your sales activities kind of implies meeting customers and showing the products at, for example, trade fairs. So I would then assume that you have been affected by the COVID pandemic, as you said. But are you now seeing markets opening up again and that you can market these products as you used to?
I can say very recently we have seen the markets opening up, but particularly a little in US and in Sweden. And not only that we can go and visit customers, but we can also, the investment willingness is coming back into new technology. And last week, actually, we had a little mini tour in the western part of Sweden and sold actually quite a number of units to 3 new customers in just a few days. And we really see very recently that it's been opening up. And that's very positive for us because we have, as you mentioned, been heavily affected by not being able to visit and travel because this is a touch and feel product. You need to touch and see physical things to be really effective. So we're very happy that we are seeing the end of the COVID pandemic.
Good to hear. And then in terms of costs, or rather value add for customers, is this product mainly for the sort of premium market, or could this be viable for all of the market, basically?
There's a large premium section that covers this, which is 5-6 or so % of the whole embroidery market. That means that and that's global, goes for every country, Vietnam, Malaysia, everything. But there is also a large section of embroidery being done in the normal industrial countries, and there the productivity advantage is good enough to make this the preferred total production solution. And I can mention that one of the customers we sold to last week, which is actually Sweden's largest embroiderer, their clear intention is this is something we do for all of our embroidery machines, because this is the future in terms of efficient production and a digital world.
Someone made a comparison between analog cameras with the films in it and a digital camera, because now you have the complete freedom to do everything with colors.
Perfect. And then this is your first product, but do you think this technology has other use cases as well, meaning that we could see you broadening your product line going forward?
Yes, definitely. So the plan from the start, also when we made a lot of these patents, is to have a broad patent base that would cover a lot of other technologies that with the aim for dyeing and coloring threads. So we have already some of the largest companies in the world from some different areas that have been a little bit chasing us and wonder when can we start the next development. So there will be products in the future for areas like knitting and weaving. The closest one is sewing, industrial sewing, where 3 of the largest players would like to work with us, and there you can use this Coloreel unit pretty much as it is now. So it's a quite low-hanging fruit.
That sounds really good. And then a last question here. You mentioned in a couple of months ago that you had planned sort of a timeline to IPO within 2 years, but there was no final decision yet. But do you have anything to share now regarding the sort of timeline to the public markets?
Yes. So we have already been starting up the preparation since a year or 2 back to make the company viable for the stock market. And well, how can I say it? If we will keep this business plan as you have seen here now, we will be able to start the process of going to the stock market already next year.
Okay, perfect. Very exciting. Thank you very much for doing this with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening, and let us know if anyone would like a big presentation.